Okay, we're good to go.
Sounds good. So thank you all for joining us for the December 2025 Housing Commission meeting. We have one person speaking during public comment. Alice, you want to go ahead?
I'm not seeing her on.
Oh, I'm not either. Okay, well, we can come back to Alice. And actually, I know one of the items that Alice wanted to talk about. Karen, I think you attended the DHS briefing on HUD's tax on homelessness services programs.
I did. Yes, I did.
Do you mind just providing a brief update to folks based on what you heard today, if you can?
Well, I am not prepared to do that. It was way beyond my bandwidth. I really don't quite understand. Well, I do, but I don't understand the funding bit. She probably would be better to talk about it during public comment. So I'll just I'll just share that I don't really understand it.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's a lot of budget implications, and I'm hearing a lot of talk about housing grants being capped in terms of a set number of housing grants. Right now, it's a rolling program so that anyone can join. Oh, there's Alice. But we're with HUD's potential cuts and changes to housing and homelessness programs. I'm just hearing a lot of talk of Arlington expecting to lose out on quite a bit of federal money. Alice, did you want to go ahead for public comment?
Sure. I'm sorry. I just was able to log in now. Did you already talk about the briefing, or did Karen talk about the briefing, or did you want me to?
We talked about it for 5 seconds. So if you want to include it in your public comment, you are more than welcome to.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Alice Hogan, affordable housing advocate with Navaja, Arlington. I just wanted to mention that I attended the briefing today, and I know Karen was there as well. I guess my main comments would be that there's a really nice slide presentation. So my suggestion would be that perhaps staff could have that sent to the commission, and everyone would be able to see the data points that they were offering, and the kind of risk that Arlington and the state and really the nation will be in as this administration shifts gears away from the housing first model towards work requirements and even treatment requirements for folks to utilize some of this grant money for permanent supportive housing. So it's a dangerous time for Arlington. I think it's over 600 individuals. Northern Virginia is, I'm forgetting my numbers, but I shouldn't say if I don't know my numbers. But anyway, a lot of people and a lot of money. And the main point I think they were saying was that there's still a chance that this could be delayed for up to a year. So that's the main focus of the nonprofit community right now, is to try to talk with elected officials at the federal level about how this is really fast and a huge shift in focus, and will have major ramifications funding wise. And also there'll be a gap because they're trying to rush it. So the money that folks are using now, and the county also, ends in January. They won't learn about if they got the money for the next round till May, and it probably wouldn't go out till August. So there's 4 to 8 months of time where there may be no coverage, and folks could end up on the street. So it's a pretty dire situation. So Karen may have more on that. The only other thing I wanted to speak to originally this evening was that we are looking at forming informal kind of working group or task force outside of Arlington County government around affordable assisted living, and looking at the challenges and any potential solutions, bringing folks together from different sort of avenue or angles of this very large current and impending challenge that we have. And so I wanted to offer that up to anyone, if there's anyone on the commission who is interested or has folks they know would be interested or would be valuable to whose opinion or info we could use or resources, any of that. Just it's starting to get going, very informal at this time, but offering it up to folks to participate or provide names or resources. So I will look forward to hearing from anybody on that. And then we do have our newsletter, which went out yesterday, and I'll be sending that to Alex to forward to you all. So there's more information in there about the NOFO we talked about, the homelessness. And it also has my contact information if you're interested in touching base on affordable assisted living. So thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Appreciate that. The next item on our agenda, if there's no more public comment, is approval of the notes. I did not have any changes to the notes from last month. Did anyone else have any edits? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded.
Okay. And just a reminder, if you guys could make sure you're on camera when you speak, if at all possible, that would be helpful to comply as much as we can with the state regulations. Okay. Any objection to approval of the notes from last month? Hearing none, they are approved. Okay. Next item is Lecky Gardens.
Yes, so I will pass it over to Zach Williams, who will introduce the developer team.
Great, thank you, Alex. My name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable representing True Ground Housing, and we have two representatives from True Ground with us tonight. We have Charles Sims and Jordy Fabian. We also have Jan Makovnik with Davis Carter Scott Architects, who will be assisting us with our presentation. Alex, we can go ahead and present now unless there's any other points of order before we do that.
Yes, would you like me to share slides or do you want to share them on your end? I can bring them up if you.
I can share. Let me share my window and start. Sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see the slide deck.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. We have a brief presentation tonight for y'all, and then we're here obviously for any questions that you may have. We are very excited to be bringing forward the Lecky Gardens redevelopment project. This has been a project that we've been talking about internally and publicly with the county for several years. It will be the very likely first project approved under the Langston Boulevard Area Plan, which was approved in 2023 by the county board. And it's a great first project that really hits a lot of the goals of the plan, primarily affordable housing. So before I go any further on that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordy to provide an introduction to True Ground. Jordy?
Thank you, Zach. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordy Fabian, and I am with True Ground Housing Partners. For those of you not familiar with True Ground is a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in Arlington, and owner of the existing Lecky Gardens property. True Ground has been in the neighborhood for over 20 years, and we're very excited on moving forward with the redevelopment of Lecky. Our mission does not stop at delivering housing. We combine real estate development with our resident services program. Our resident service program is a core certified resident services team, which provide individual assistance to residents. Some of these programs include focusing on financial well-being, health and wellness, education and mentorship, civic engagement, and workforce development. True Ground owns and operates approximately 3,000 affordable housing units with over 2,000 units in the pipeline. Our focus is on the 30% to 60% area median income. In this case, Lekki, we're proposing all units to be at 60% or below of the area median income. We also focus on typically 10% of permanent supportive housing. And currently we're operating throughout the DMV region with projects in 5 jurisdictions. Zach, could you go to the next slide? So our mission is focused on providing quality affordable housing and resident-centered programming to help our residents make the most of their home. To achieve this, we design our building and amenities around our residents' needs. We work with our asset management and property management team to ensure we incorporate quality features that will last. And our vision is that everyone deserves a place to call home, which is a foundation to live their lives. We believe that housing is not only a basic right, but a platform for stability, community connection, and economic opportunity. And I'll pass it on to Zach, who's going to take us through some of the zoning.
Great, thank you, Jordy. As folks may be aware, the Lucky Gardens development project will be replacing the current Lucky Gardens apartments, of which there are 40 apartments on the site. Those buildings will be demolished and replaced by a new building with new resident apartments. And it should be noted that the current residents will be given the opportunity to come back to the project once the new building is built. We'll be proceeding under the Langston Boulevard area plan, which will require rezoning to CO 1.5 and a GLUP amendment designation, as well as a 4.1 site plan. Very quickly, walking through the plan, this project is in compliance with all of the development standards, guidelines, and requirements of the plan. Height and density was one of the most talked about issues on this site, and ultimately the county board approved a stepping down approach starting at 10 stories going down to 5, and that's this project does comply with the height and density recommended in the plan. This is just another slide that we've used to show how height is calculated on the site. This site has a lot of grade change on it, and so depending on how you're looking at the building may look like a 10-story building, it may look like a 5-story building or a 7 or 8-story building, depending on what corner you're on, given the way that the grade and the setbacks work. The plan also calls for a setback off of 20th Road that respects the current building footprint of the current Lucky Gardens buildings, and we will be providing that and providing an overland relief area there on the southern part of the site, as well as some stormwater improvements. That was another big issue on this site, given some of the past flooding issues that have occurred here. With that, I'll turn it over to our architect, Jan, with DCS to walk through the development plan. Jan?
Good evening. My name is Jan Makovnik. I'm with Davis Carter Scott. I am an architect on the project. So this is redevelopment of the existing Lucky Garden community, as Zach mentioned already, approximately with 249 affordable units, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms in the building, and with 2-level parking garage with about 218 parking spaces. The massing it was dictated as in compliance with the Langston Boulevard plan. And the building steps from 4, 6 to 9 and 10 stories as it goes towards north, towards closer to Langston Boulevard. There are frontages on 3 sides on 21st Street, on the Woodstock and Woodrow side, and on the 20th Road. There is a relatively significant green buffer, a greenway with the stormwater and other amenities provided in this area. We are meeting a 35% canopy coverage required by the Langston plan and provide a greenway, or again, overland relief on the 20th Road. We are targeting LEED silver with a green building, and also the building inside. It's got a kind of a O shape, and it provides a private courtyard for residents. This is a site plan that is showing the shape of the building and the way it sits on the side between Woodstock, Woodrow on the east side, on the west side. The north is 21st Street and 20th Road on the south side, with the greenway and green space buffer on the south end. What you see inside in the middle is the private courtyard I mentioned earlier. This is a perspective. This is on the side, on the corner of 21st Street and Woodstock, which is it's a 10-story building with a bit more vertical expressions, a combination of materials like a brick, masonry, it's some fiber cement boards and some metal coping and panels, and the main entrance at the corner. As you can see, this is kind of really the elevation that really shows the massing of the building and the stepping from, again, from 4, 6 to 9 and 10 floors. This side is an entrance on the right side and has some vertical elements, but the idea is to make the building a bit more horizontal, especially on the south side of the building. On the left side, at the base, you start to see there is partially the exposed parking garage that comes out of the ground as the woodstock significantly slopes down. There is almost 20-foot drop. Just the massing of the building. This is a nice view from the west side. It's a Woodrow Street, where again the building showed the massing, the stepping from 10-9 to 6 to 4 floors, and the greenway on the side. This is a view from Woodstock, corner of Woodstock and the 20th Road, and you kind of see that really the parts of the building that are tall and 9 and 10 story are not really visible from this corner. And to the left there are some single-family homes across the street on 20th Road. So this really kind of the massing nicely steps, goes first to the buffer with some trees, and then go to 4 floors, to 6 floors, to 9 floors, and 10 floors. So the building doesn't appear nowhere near as massive as normally a 10-story building would appear. This is the corner, just a bit detailed corner, the main entrance to the building on the 21st Street and Woodstock. It's kind of the highest point of the site, with some additional landscaping and providing some ground landscaping, hardscaping, and the main entrance. This is just the evening shot, how the building would look like during the night when lots of people would be coming home. It's another view that's along the 21st Street, and these are actually the common areas. So this is a bit more activated side of the building that has more of a public uses. There's going to be some leasing office. There is secondary entrance, and you can see in that green color expressed also vertically that provides access to like halfway block on the 21st Street. This is just another view showing a bit more detailed view along the Woodstock Street. There is a little in the corners the loading dock that serves the building, and there are some additional entrances and exits from the building you see next to it, and the base, as you see, the activated base. This is a Woodrow Street with the parking entrance. Next, please. And this is just a diagram that show, again, there's a section through the building, and it shows how it steps from 4, 6, 9 to 10 floors. I'm then going to quickly walk through the just layouts. The building has 2 levels of parking. They are connected via a speed ramp. So there's just one single entrance for the building out of Woodrow Street on the upper level. Then it goes down, and again, it's probably about 218 parking spaces. There are some additional amenities such as bicycle parking, and it also starts to show the loading dock that is off of Woodstock Street. This would be the main ground floor of the building that would have mostly units, but will also have the residential courtyard and other amenities, leasing office, and other areas that would serve the building. And these we're just going to go flip quickly. These are just showing the different floor plans that would start to show how the building is stepping back, and it becomes like an O shape with the internal courtyard. Go to another floor, please. Yeah, this is still kind of an enclosed courtyard, and once we go to the 7th floor, the building opens up, and it just becomes more like a U-shaped building, opens towards the south. This is the 7th floor, the 9th floor, and the last one, which is the smallest, which is the 10th floor of the building.
Thank you, Jan. I'll just quickly walk through these. Some of the improvements we've hit upon. We will be implementing the streetscape guidelines in the Langston Boulevard area plan on all 4 sides of the site. Significant streetscape improvements, sidewalk, buffers, new curbs, new curb bump outs as well for a better pedestrian experience. I touched upon the stormwater environmental enhancements the site will be providing. And I think Jordy and Jan both mentioned some of the green elements of the building. That also includes bike parking, preservation of those existing trees. The tree canopy issue is a real challenge on this site. 35% tree canopy is one of the most ambitious requirements in the Langston Boulevard area plan, and we were able to just meet it, which was good because we really thought that was important as well. As is obvious, one of the biggest public amenities this project provides is affordable housing. All the units will be affordable and provided by one of the preeminent affordable housing developers and operators in the region in True Ground. But it also is important as the first project out of the gate for Langston Boulevard. Langston Boulevard has officially arrived as a new area for investment and development. And so that's a big deal because a lot of folks have been working on getting things moving on this corridor for many decades. So this is a great flagship first project to come through the gates. Because it's a site plan, we'll be doing the public art fund, like all site plans. And again, it'll be implementing the Langston Boulevard area plan that folks worked on for so many years. And with that, that concludes our presentation. We're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Karen, I think, were you the SPRC representative? Do you want to give your thoughts before we open it up?
Sure. So overall, Joe and I both attended, and we also listened to some of the comments from the current community, and we also thought that maybe you can address some of these concerns. There's 3 concerns in particular. One was the actual building design. It's a massive building compared to what's already there, and I guess the most the big thought was the parking garage is not fully underground. It's partially exposed with those metal ventilation. And so I wondered if that had changed at all since the SPRC meeting. That's my first question. The metal grates that you have on the exposed part of the parking lot.
Yes, we are currently working on those changes, and we are aiming to have those changes shown at the next SPRC meeting, which is on Monday. So that is still a work in progress. There will be some design improvements. As we discussed at the prior SPRC, the building that you saw tonight is very different from the building that we submitted with our application back former this summer. So we've already made quite a bit of improvements and changes to the architecture, taking the feedback from the community, from staff, and from others, and we've implemented that, and we think it's a much better building, and we'll continue to improve it. As far as the screening goes, we're working on that as well. We're working on getting some additional greenery in that area along where the parking garage is exposed partially, and so there's a couple different ways that we can do that. But we're working on that as well so we can further screen that area with some greenery, which I know was something that was discussed at the SPRC.
Thank you. That's good to know. The second concern, which I also am very curious about, is that there are 218 parking spaces for 249 units. I know that some of those are folks that will not have cars, but that area is not near, Metro or, so how are you addressing the parking space concerns from the community?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we've heard that concern. So at the SPRC meeting on Monday, we're going to flesh out exactly how we're justifying, and we think this parking ratio will work. We've alluded to some of the other projects that are similar, that have lower utilization of parking. We're going to provide further data on that, more specificity. We're also going to provide additional information about Lecky Gardens itself and how it currently operates in terms of its parking lot. I think there's some misconceptions about how the property is currently operating. And we've heard several times folks say that all the parking spaces are always taken there. That turns out not to be the case. And we'll be fleshing that out further on Monday. We're hoping we can get folks more comfortable with the parking ratio because we are confident it's going to be sufficient based on the track record that True Ground has with other similar buildings, but also just knowing its residents, knowing how its residents, what its residents' needs are, who's really going to have cars. And frankly, the less parking that we have, the more units we can provide. So everything's a trade-off. And I think we've got the optimal ratio right now. We just got to do a little bit more to get folks comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. And then the third, and by the way, I thought your presentation was great at the SPRC meeting. I should have started with that. But the third question, and I'm going to try to attend the next one as well, just so I can get a better idea. Also was just to make it as fully energy efficient as possible, which I believe you are doing, because this building is going to be there for, I don't know, what, 60 years or so, we hope, right? Or more, 90 years? I don't know how long buildings last. So hoping that you think that you also put in the EV charge, I think you mentioned in that previous presentation that you are going to put EV uh, like that, the ability to be able to charge electric vehicles. So whatever you can do to make this building as energy efficient, that would be great. Thanks.
So we will be providing that.
Thank you.
But I want to just clarify that the spaces will be EV ready.
That's correct.
Okay, so they'll be EV ready, and then at some point you'll be able to put the infrastructure for that. Okay.
If required, we can install charging stations depending on the resident needs.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Katie?
Thanks. First of all, really excited to see this building. It looks beautiful. Really excited to see the first building on the Langston Boulevard area plan after working on that plan 2 years ago. And I guess I had a couple questions. One is about the current residents, and are they, you said they're going to be guaranteed a spot once the building is done, but in the meantime, what's the plan for them? Where are they going? And how is that being communicated?
Jordy,
Yeah.
you want to answer that one?
Yes. Yeah. So we've actually had an initial meeting with our residents to introduce the project and sort of the rough timeline of the whole development process. We will continue to have resident meetings to engage them as we get deeper into the actual development process and getting closer to the construction start. We've hired a relocation consultant that's going to be helping out with the management of notifying the residents, as well as finding the residents a temporary temporary living while they're during construction. So essentially, as part of that relocation process, we also have to go through the tenant landlord committee to get approvals on our relocation plan. And the residents, they will be able to essentially they will have they will be able to come back to their units, and they will be able to be the first one to choose if they choose to do so. But in the meantime, typically what we try to do is either they try to relocate them to either other true ground property or a property that works for them. And we as true ground, we would be in charge of the relocation expenses. And in some instances, if they choose to go elsewhere to not a true ground property, we will also be responsible for providing that difference in rent during the construction period. So, but yeah, so the process with the residents is a long process, but we've heard that there are always concerns and hesitant of moving or temporarily relocating, but I think bringing this sort of new building with all these new amenities, it was also sort of a plus, seeing them being very excited about the project.
Great, thanks for explaining, and it's great to hear that you're providing the difference in rent as well. And I had just another question real quick. So I'm really curious, since there was so much debate during the Langston Boulevard area plan about heights and setbacks, I'm just curious, if you guys hadn't hit, if the height limit was even higher than it is now, would you guys have built a taller building, or is it not really that feasible to build a taller building anyway? Like, how much would that limit and those setbacks have limited the number of units that you built, if you can say?
Jordy?
Yeah. So right now, we actually, I think we're able to, if we wanted to, we can extend by one additional level on the 10-story site because we're underneath that height restriction. But in essence, at some point, while it become more efficient to build, it becomes more difficult to finance. So the 250 unit mark, it's definitely a good point where we can still be able to provide as much housing as possible, but it's still a project that's feasible. And the fact that we get to that 249 unit count, it allows for those sort of efficiencies to be able to make the project feasible. And then to the other point with the setbacks, yeah, the setbacks do provide some constraints in terms of constructability. So this building will likely be a concrete building, given the building height. But I think it's also a good building because concrete will last over any sort of wood over concrete, wood frame over concrete. So I think that definitely it's also allowing us to provide a building that will last.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question about the current tenants. Are any of them represented on the SPRC committee?
They are not currently, though we have had discussions about that with the county. But at this time, there are not any.
Yeah, I'd like to strongly recommend and urge True Ground not to move forward with any projects like this where they don't have tenant representation. If it's a project that's redeveloping a property where you have existing tenants, they have to be represented in the decision making. Like it's part of your mission to make sure that your tenants are empowered. So I feel like this isn't something that should have to be said, but you need to make sure that you're pushing the county to make sure that they're including existing tenants in SPRCs, because we can't have neighbors across the street and people who aren't directly impacted by the site represented and have their voice heard, and then the people who live there are indirectly represented through the people who own the building, and manage it. Like that's not how this is supposed to work. So I know Monday is probably not enough time to get tenant representatives, on the SPRC, but for all future projects, True Ground has to do this. And this is true for all of our nonprofit affordable housing partners. I mean, it's part of the mission to empower tenants. And we need you guys to be pushing the county to say, hey, we got to find a way to figure out how to get tenant representation on these, because they need to be involved in the decision making. Other question that I have is, well, that wasn't a question. Well, the first part was, and then it was a lecture. But for the existing property, can you talk a little bit more? And I think I missed, or that kind of, it flew by me, the existing property and the demographics and the resident count compared to the new property, for the redeveloped one.
Jordy, you want to say that?
Yeah, I can speak towards the existing property. Consists of 40 units. I believe we have 2, 3, and 4, a few 4-bedroom units. As far as the demographics, so it's a family building, so we have folks from all over. The new building will consist of 249 units. I think one thing to note is typically we don't built 4-bedroom unit, but in this case, we're replacing those 4-bedroom units to allow for those residents living in those units to be able to come back. And I guess, did I answer your question, or am I missing something?
I think so. Yeah, I was trying to get a sense of, and maybe I missed it in the presentation, but the family size that you have in the existing ones versus what's going to be built, and if that is going to be sort of 1-for-1. Obviously, there's a lot more units in the new one, but
yes, yeah. So yes. So for this new building, we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units, with a larger concentration of units on the 2 and 3-bedroom. So it is really meant target for families. As far as the programming goes, we'll have community rooms, lounge rooms. We'll also fit our programming about you keep in mind that we'll have families, so kids. So a lot of our programming, especially on the courtyard, it's surrounded about kids. So having like a good playground, and different activities the kids can do. We also going to have on-site resident services that's going to be on site, and so they're able to program different activities with residents or different programs that would involve the kids or residents. In our resident service team is part of True Ground, so they work also. So we also have an on-site leasing. Well, they mainly responsibilities about like the property management, but on-site resident services really focus on the residents and their well-being.
Are all of the units going to be 60% of AMI, or what is the income limitation look like?
Yeah, no, so not all units are going to be 60%. We're going to have, so we're looking to provide 30% units. We're looking to have about 11 units at 30%, about approximately 41 units at 50% of the AMI, and about 197 units at around 60% of AMI. So it's really a mix of so most of these are going to be at 60% AMI, but we're also trying to serve some of the deeper affordable households.
Do you know how that maps to the existing residents?
I do not,
okay.
But I can find out.
Yeah,
so we're providing significantly more affordability at every level, Kellen. So
yeah, I mean, I figured it's a lot more unit, and it's great that you guys are doing 30% and 50%. That's awesome to hear. Just helpful to have the demographic profile for the existing residents because it is a redevelopment. Can you talk about what role, if any, the existing residents have had in sort of shaping the design process for like the community spaces? Like I know you talked about there being like community room and things. Have you been engaging with the existing residents to talk about like, hey, in this redeveloped building that hopefully you all come back to, what are the types of like spaces you want to see? And have they been involved in that process?
So I'll touch on this. It's a bit too early for that in the design process. So until we get through this, we don't know exactly how the building's going to be shaped. We work intentionally with each community to design the resident programming around that. So when a True Ground community opens, it doesn't necessarily have a resident services program predetermined. What happens is those are determined as we work through what the resident population's needs are. They have communities where folks may be primarily speaking one language or another, and we design our programming around that. That makes sense.
Yeah, sorry. And I was thinking less programming and more the physical spaces, like, we want like a community room that also has like a kitchen so we can host like, parties or things or. A
lot of that is more determined based off programming, funding requirements, etc. That's not something that would be, we don't want to, tell residents, oh, we're going to provide you a kitchen, and then funding priorities say, no, we can't, because it's just not what is prioritized by one funding source or another. So we tend to wait a bit until we can get that determined, and then we work that process with residents.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's helpful, and maybe you've already done this, to at least ask and just make sure that you are all well aware of what the existing residents would like to see, even if you may not be able to do what they're looking for.
But I think something that would be instructive for you is that we've already met with our residents. We've had several community meetings with them and highlighted what's going on and talked through the process and where they are and heard their concerns and addressed a lot of those sorts of things with them.
That's good to hear. Thanks, Charles.
Welcome.
Other questions, comments from commissioners?
Real quick, I know you mentioned the energy efficiency, is that does it include like sort of natural gas burning appliances and such, or is it none of that? Is it all electric?
It's electric appliances.
Okay, great.
Anything else? Alice, did you have public comment on this item?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
I did, but
sorry.
I guess you
Sorry,
guys
I missed
passed
that,
over.
Alice. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Is
We can
now a
public
good
comment.
time or?
Sure.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, Alice Hogan Navaja, Arlington. I just wanted to, you know, lift up this project. It's in process. It's still evolving, but it's looking really good. It's hitting on so many of our county priorities that are in the Affordable Housing Master Plan. A lot of what you all have said, we worked for over a decade on the Langston Boulevard plan, and this project coming forth within that plan is so exciting to finally see something and to have it be affordable is amazing. Over, more than 109 net new CAFs in this high opportunity neighborhood is remarkable, to be celebrated for sure. The developer and the design team are being very responsive to the community and making appropriate adjustments. The idea that it's LEED silver and still, also getting the 30% tree coverage is pretty remarkable. A lot of times in projects, as we know, there's a tension between green features and space and utilizing, maximizing our space and air for affordable units. And so to see these two goals coming together in this way is really excellent, and I commend that. I was going to mention about the AMI, but you all just heard that we have I think over 50 units that'll be 50% or under. That's remarkable. I don't know that there's anything under 60% in this building at the moment. So that's a great 35 3-bedroom units. Again, amazing, and holding on to the 4 bedrooms. So a lot of important values are coming forth in this project. As I said, I feel like the developer and the team is very responsive. There are more SPRCs to come. We're hearing complaints about the height, and I think that's always a concern. I will say that the tapering, and they didn't talk about it too much this time, but you can see from the different angles, they've created the building such that when you're standing in certain positions, you cannot see all the way up it, and that's really important. Those lines, visual lines, will help break it up and not feel like a 10-story is coming down on folks. Again, they could have gone higher and chose not to, so I think that's an important point, that it's not maxing out even what the plan would have allowed for that space. I know parking is an issue, and I'm looking forward to the presentation on Monday evening. Minimizing or even eliminating parking requirements is something that's happening all over the nation. So I think we really need to understand that better and get on board for the cost benefit for that. And my last question was just for county staff or the developer, which was, do we have a better sense now of the rest of this process? Like, there's one SPRC next week. Do we know what meetings are coming when, and when you all, or maybe Alex knows, will be coming back to the Housing Commission going forward? So thank you, and I'd love to hear that one answer if anybody knows.
Yeah, I can hop on real quick, Alice. So it will be going back to the second SPRC. The only other plan for the Housing Commission to hear it at this point would be the month that it goes to the county board for consideration, and it would be heard as an action item. So that's when this group will hear the item again.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Alex. And thank you to True Ground and your partners for the presentation. It sounds like a great project. It's not an action item for us tonight, just information and for us to, get our questions answered and provide any comments to you all. But appreciate you committing to building affordable housing along Langston Boulevard. This seems like a great project.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Next item on our agenda is Walgreens.
Yes, and Zach is also the land use attorney on that one, so I'll hand it back over to him.
Thank you, Alex. All right. As you all know, my name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable, representing Rooney Properties on the Walgreens site, 3130 Langston Boulevard. With us tonight, we have Cassie Guy with Rooney Properties and also Steve Saff with Davis Carter Scott Architects. I think they're both on. Yep, there they are.
Hello.
I'm going to hand it over to you to Cassie to introduce Rooney Properties.
Sure. Thank you, Zach, and thank you for being on double duty tonight. I appreciate that. It's kind of great. So I'm Cassie. I'm with Rooney Properties. Just a short blurb about us. We are a small, local, family-owned and operated real estate development company. And when I say local, I mean it. Our headquarters is actually at Kirkwood in Washington. So we are less than half a mile away from this particular site and located in Arlington. We are excited about this project. We are long-term holders, and we are trying to build the best project we can in this area. I apologize. I just put my baby down, and I'm single solo tonight, and I'm just hearing him cry. So that's where my brain just went. So I apologize for that. He should be good though. I think we're at the end of it. But we are, we are excited about this project. We're excited about building in Arlington and meeting with you guys tonight. So thank you very much.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a presentation for y'all. So as I mentioned, this is a new project at 3130 Langston Boulevard. At the corner of Langston Boulevard is Spout Run, just across from the Lion Village Shopping Center. You heard from Cassie. You'll also hear from Steve Saff at Davis Carter Scott tonight. Micah is the civil on the project, and we also have Andrew with land design. They're not with us tonight, but if you attend any of our SPRC meetings, including the one coming up on the 18th, you'll hear from the whole team. Just quickly to walk through the project, this is a residential apartment development project. It'll be replacing the former Walgreens at this location, which is no longer operating, with a 12-story building with 300 residential units and 364 parking spaces. As you'll see, the project providing unit sizes of a variety of layouts and sizes to accommodate different needs. This project, like the last, will seek to implement the recommendations and standards of the Langston Boulevard Area Plan. It is in compliance with the plan guidance for the site. We'll be providing a retail along Langston Boulevard as well of about 7,500 square feet. Retail or retail equivalent users, I should say. And we are also providing some important public amenities called for in the plan, including a public plaza park hybrid accessible from Kirkwood Road, which we'll get into here in a minute. Just like on the last site, we have 3 concurrent applications: special exception site plan 4.1, rezoning, and a GLUP change. So I did want to highlight community engagement. This project, we filed this project almost I want to say 15 months ago. And there's been quite a lot of community engagement on this project. This was the first project that was filed under the plan. It's now been perhaps passed by the True Ground project in terms of when it might get approved, but this project has been under review for quite some time. And at this site, we are actually adjacent to 4 civic associations, and all 4 have been very involved. And so this just gives you a sense for, these are not all the meetings and calls that we've had, but this is just some of them with the various civic associations to discuss this project. With that, we're going to get into the architecture and the site design. I'm going to hand it over to Steve Saff with Davis Carter Scott to walk through these. Steve.
Okay. All right. First slide. So we have the site here. You can see the I-66 on Langston Boulevard and the site right at the corner nestled in there with North Kirkwood at the bottom part of it and Langston Boulevard at the northern section. And we have the pawn shop right at the very intersection of North Kirkwood and Langston Boulevard. Next. This is the massing diagram that was originally envisioned for the Langston area plan, and we did try to adhere to that massing, I think for numerous reasons, pushing the building as far away from residential as possible to the close to Langston Boulevard and I-66. We did adhere to that, and given the layout of the building and the elevator cores and all that, it did reinforce that layout. Yeah.
Take this one,
Okay.
Steve.
Yeah.
There's a couple portions of the Langston plan I want to highlight here because they've really, in many ways, driven the way that this building was designed. And one of those is that this is another area that has experienced flooding. And so stormwater management, flooding issues have been top of mind throughout the design of this project and the review of it. Plan calls for an overland relief corridor along Kirkwood Road, and in working with staff, that's actually shifted a bit. It's now going to follow the property line with the pawn shop. We won't get too much into that unless there's questions about it, because we could talk for hours about stormwater if we wanted to on this site, but it is important to know we are meeting the goal of the plan to provide some overland relief all along Kirkwood. We're also providing that public plaza park hybrid, and that's not just for building residents, but also for the public. It's a 5,000 square foot park at the Kirkwood southwest corner of the site. It's a little highlighted with a little B on this plan, and we are providing that. The plan here calls for up to 12 stories. 12 stories on the Walgreens site and 10 stories on the pawn shop site. We are providing a 12-story building, and as Steve mentioned, most of that density and height is located adjacent to the 66 and Langston Boulevard frontages. This is also an intersection that we know is a dangerous intersection. It's an intersection that folks have been trying to improve for some time. It's a difficult intersection to navigate if you're in a car, or especially if you're a pedestrian. These are issues that this project can't solve on its own, but we have been working with county staff, county board to figure out ways to continue to make this a better intersection going forward. So now back over to Steve to walk through these project renderings.
Okay, so we'll have a lot of perspectives here. So I think with the amount of perspectives, I think you'll get a good feel of the building from a lot of different angles. The building is a modern interpretation of an Art Deco style building. It has a very strong base, middle, and the top. And on the very northeast corner of the building, which again is an L-shaped building, we did step it back, which provides a outdoor terrace at the top floor with great views of Roslyn and DC. The north elevation. Oh, okay. I was just going to go back just for a second. All along Langston Boulevard, this is the north elevation, going towards the pawn shop. You have a double height space of retail and amenities, which activates the street. So you will have a very activated visual front of the building. Next slide. This is the southwest corner of the building, looking north on North Kirkwood. This is the secondary lobby at the ground level. There are two lobbies, a main lobby, which is a more formal lobby, and this is the secondary lobby. And then you can see on where the building stops, and then you have the setback and the dog leg to the north. There's an elevated courtyard and has a lot of vegetation. I guess Andrea could have spoken about all the vegetation that we needed to meet on this site. Was incredibly stringent, and we really did a good job of, I think land design did a great job of meeting that requirement. Next slide. This is looking from the pawn shop. This is the east elevation. And again, you get a good sense of all that greenery on the elevated courtyard. Next. And this gives you kind of the whole, you get to see the pawn shop in concert with the building behind it. A little bit further out. And this is taken from the hill across I-66 looking to the southeast. And just another aerial from above. You see there is signage on the building. That is just a placeholder. We'll work with the county and to get their proper signage and scale and all that, meet those requirements. This is just looking I-66 heading to heading towards DC. So you see the building from your car heading north. This is from aerial from the very southwest corner looking down on the whole site. This is looking on across the street on North Kirkwood from the hillside, and it carries the language of the base that you see on North Kirkwood. That base and the language of it carries all the way around the building and carries also along North Kirkwood. This is looking at the northeast corner. You can see the retail at this corner, 2-story high space running all along North Kirkwood, as I mentioned, and the step ups to the retail. This was in result of a lot of things we had to work out with stormwater management. So we've elevated all the retail along this frontage. And this is looking from the I-66 underpass, looking east on Langston Boulevard. And this just a little bit closer in for that view, looking from North Kirkwood, looking north to the secondary lobby. And just to the right, you have the loading dock and garage entrance. And that is a view of the elevated courtyard. And this just gives you a better idea of the streetscape along Langston Boulevard. All right, we'll quickly go through the plans. This is the basement plan, something you'll never see, but this is the ground floor. The orange and yellow are the amenities, lobby, and then the yellow is the retail area facing Langston Boulevard. The blue area is parking. This is a typical parking level above, and the third level of parking. And this is the typical floor. Actually, this is a floor at the elevated courtyard level, and that's a typical floor plan. And then we get to the last plan, which is one more. There you go, is the top floor, and you can see the terrace over at the northeast corner of the building where the massing steps back. And this gives you a feel of both the building, the elevated courtyard, the park plaza, and a lot of the paths along there. Again, would have been able to, Andrew would have been able to speak to it better, but this just two shots, one at the retail northeast corner of the building and the other at the park, the pocket park. And these are just different perspectives of those areas.
Yeah, this is that Plaza Park hybrid view, which has been modified and improved over the course of more than a year now. This is its current iteration. That's that main public amenity that the project's going to be providing.
Sure.
And that's that concludes our presentation. We're here and available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Very good. All right, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm really excited about this project, and just want to thank you for taking the time to pay attention to the issue around stormwater flooding. I know it's been a serious complaint in this area for a number of years, so I'm pleased to hear that you're already taking preemptive measures to address that. I have one question about some of the conversations you have with the county regarding the traffic issue in that area. You do know the intersection is quite dangerous. I travel it pretty often. I don't live too far from here, so I'd just love to hear some of your conversations, what you've taken away from them with the county, if you've already had dialogue with them regarding this, and your plans to try to mitigate any potential pedestrian issues in the area.
Yeah, I can start, and then Cassie, please fill in with whatever I missed. So we've actually met with all of the county board members at the site with the community and civic association leaders. I think we did those meetings in September, just a few months ago. So all 5 county board members have been out to the site, not only to get a better understanding of how the development will work, but also mainly the transportation and pedestrian problems that exist out there at Langston and Spout Run. So, the county is very, very aware of the problem. I think the question that remains is the timeline for solving the problem, how to solve the problem, given this is a VDOT road. And so, we have to work with VDOT, and, VDOT is its own independent entity. And so that's another factor in all of this. It also limits, frankly, what we can do in terms of, with respect to this project. So folks are very aware of it. Folks know that it needs to improve. There's been discussion with different folks about crosswalks and things like that. Everything has been considered in terms of what's safest for pedestrians and vehicular traffic. It's definitely going to be a continued conversation even after this project's approved. Cassie, anything I'm missing?
I think just 2 pieces there. One, just from our personal standpoint, the very first meeting I had with county staff and related to this project was about the intersection and was about transportation. That was even long before we even recognized the stormwater issues and knowing kind of where we had to put a lot of our time and effort. That was the very first meeting we had. Since then, what I will say is we have been reassured by county staff that a large-scale transportation study is in process. And so in many ways, while we view betterments to this intersection as just a general amenity to the community and to our project, we are ready and willing to work with the county however we need to. And it sounds like a lot of that has been, let's get through this study. And so we respect that, and we're working with them as best we can, but I know that they want the time to work through it. It may not be on my timetable, selfishly, but we are here standing by and ready to work with them. Now, what we can do within our control, which is, I think, just a really important piece as a developer and as an owner and as a long-term neighbor, we've trying our best to do like what is in our control. So the little things like making sure setting the timing of the crosswalk is a really important piece, because right now it's very short. So we're looking at that. We are removing or we're relocating some utility poles so that the actual pedestrian experience walking along the crosswalk, you can actually walk on the crosswalk. That's again something that's in our control that we don't necessarily need approval from VDOT or the county to do. We can just do that because it's going to make the experience better. And so those are the things that are in our purview that we are doing just on our own accord, knowing that this is there's a safety hazard here. And then we're also kind of in a wait and see position with the county to go through their large scale transportation study for this intersection.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know, I'm aware of the updates being done to the master transportation plan right now. And I understand a lot of this is going to involve VDOT. So there's a limitation to what you can do, but I appreciate the steps you're taking proactively to address what's already kind of in your power, and seems proactively engaging the county in the ways that make sense to ensure that they understand the issue here and how important it is to address it before you get too far along into the process. So thank you for looking out for that.
Thank you. And if there is anything else that comes to mind, please always feel free to reach out and let us know. If there's, kind of those small specific things the little things we can do to make a better impact now, we are very much on board with doing.
Can you all talk about the affordable housing ordinance, like base density, how that impacts the project or what the options are for you all? And then is there any bonus density associated with this project or no?
Yes, yes to both. So we will have the base affordable housing contribution that we'll be providing to the AHIP fund for all of the base density in the project. There also is bonus density in the project. We're still working with the county on how exactly that's going to play out. What I can tell you is there will be CAFs in this building. How many, I don't know yet. As folks may know, the Langston Boulevard area plan was very, very aggressive in some of the language on affordable housing requirements for these plans. This is the first market rate project to test the feasibility and the limits of what can be provided. We've had several conversations. We're just about to get into those conversations more in depth with the county to see what will be expected of us. I will say, we know we'll be providing CAFs, but we've also spent quite a bit of time, money, and we'll be dedicating time, money, and land to these stormwater management issues. I won't get into all the nitty gritty of it, but it's involved quite a lot of concessions on the part of Rooney, moving the building back, moving the building around. We're going to be installing a new culvert that was definitely not part of the Langston plan, but it's something that staff's asked us to do. So everything is a balance, obviously, with community benefits, and that will all come into play, but we will be providing CAFs. It's just a question of we don't know how many yet.
And do you know what the contribution would be for the base density?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I can get that to you.
Okay, yep, that'd be helpful. And can you tell us more about the unit size mix?
Cassie, you want to take that one?
Hot potato, Steve. I can, but Steve might be a little bit better.
Steve, you're on mute.
As far as the mix on it?
Yep.
I think we're about 70% one bedroom, roughly. And we have some 3 bedrooms as well in the building.
Okay.
We do. We started out with 3, but I think we are down to 1 or 2 just with the latest cut. And that was an important ask by JD, and we made a kind of a pivot later in the term to try to make sure we had at least 1 or 2 3 bedrooms.
Okay. And then are you able to say for bonus density what like ballpark range, how many CAFs we could be talking about?
We don't have it yet. It's not just a question of bonus density, it's also GLUP, the GLUP change that will generate some CAF units. And so we just don't know that yet. We've had some preliminary discussions with Aaron at the county about this, and we'll continue to have more. As soon as we might have more clarity on this in a couple weeks or in a month or so. This project was kind of on hold for a while to get the stormwater management issues figured out. We just got it kind of restarted again. Now we're back on schedule. So hopefully we'll have more clarity on that soon.
Okay, thank you. And did we have a rep, Alex, on the SPRC for this?
We do not yet, and I was going to ask for one later in development updates.
Joe has volunteered.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
And I'll be the backup, or he volunteered this afternoon.
Okay, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
And the next one will be December 18th. Well, that will probably be the second and the last SPRC, hopefully.
Any other questions or comments from folks?
I just wanted to go ahead and share
Yeah,
our unit mix with you. I'm sorry we didn't have it front and center, but this is the unit summary.
And do you guys have an idea of the like average rents for the different unit sizes?
We don't at this time. Development in this with market rate and it's a tough business to triangulate. We're talking now about a project that isn't even going to start until 2027 and won't be concluded until 2029. So it's just a hard answer to give.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, no questions, but just a comment about this, and also tying back into the previous development. This, there's an article in RL Now about the 55 bus getting transit signal priority, which is a minor change, but I think the amount of people that are now going to be on this corridor, when you have the CAF units up in Waverly Hills and then these market rate developments here, the 55 buses could be a quick ride to Roslyn, which, DMV moves. This is a 3-line, hub, so you can just hop on a bus. The infrastructure is slowly going in place, but this is really, it's gonna the riders generated here and generated by the CAFs and the True Ground property are going to just really, benefit each other and really enhance the connectivity, as well as, this site here, you have that multiple access points to get into Clarendon, which is, just up the street. So I think that, when you look at the corridor, like there really hasn't been much new CAF development. There hasn't been much new market rate rental, particularly. So to have these sort of first pass developments is like, it's this kind of the slow start of really seeing a corridor of, not of the same level of pedestrian vibrancy and other things that we have in RV corridor, but this is technically, I would say this is still a kind of an RV corridor development, just a couple blocks to the north. But so I think that both the committed affordable units being constructed at the True Ground and then this are going to really play off each other to help hopefully get more of a spine development that we see in Wilson and Clarendon. So that's just my comments.
Thank you, Jason. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Karen.
I just had a quick question about the bike path. Is that, because I couldn't really see your drawings, is that being moved? Because doesn't the bike path right now go behind the building? Or I guess that may be to be determined. Maybe that's
Do you
too
mean the
specific.
Custis Trail?
Yeah, the Custis Trail. Doesn't it go like behind the building right now?
You mean behind the future building or behind the Walgreens?
Behind the Walgreens, doesn't it go right now?
I don't think it goes behind the Walgreens. I hope people aren't traveling behind them.
I think it's across the street, right?
Yeah, so
I've been there a lot. I think it's across the street, like behind
It's across the street.
Okay, but I guess because I couldn't see what was going on, but I guess the bike path is staying where it is.
We are going to have a new bike path along our frontage on streetscape of Langston. And then in an effort to not have it be a bike path to nowhere, just being really candid, because we don't have control of the pawn shop, and then we want to be able to continue up Langston, but I'm saying a lot, recognizing that the intersection, there are a lot of constraints there. So between the intersection, the Custis Trail, our building, our new streetscape, what we are doing, we think is kind of like the best method to be connected to bikes, responsive to them, and be responsible developers and not just throw people into that intersection. We're actually going to take our new bike path and then have that take a right-hand turn. If you're heading into the city, take a right-hand turn up our greenway, up our future overland relief greenway area. And it's a bit of a roundabout. So you're going to come in front of the site and then you're going to go up the site to Kirkwood so that you can actually remain on a trail. And then you come back down Kirkwood a little bit on the bike path. And that way we don't have to just kind of throw people into the intersection. We don't have to worry about, what the pawn shop is doing or that intersection right now. This is just a make safe space for bikers to get back onto Langston Boulevard and another bike path. That I know that wasn't the most straightforward answer, but we put a lot of thought into how to make this safe and achievable. And Let me know if you have any other questions about
No,
it.
thank you. I was just thinking about transportation when, Jason started talking about transportation, but thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good, and we'll have wayfinding both on the site, on the street, and up for visual.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on to our next agenda item? Great. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. The project looks good, and look forward to having one of our reps at the next SPRC as the process moves forward.
Thank you all very
And
much for your time
Thank you
today.
all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Our next agenda item is the 2024 Fair Housing Testing Report.
Yes, so I can turn it over to Anna Mannard, who is at the Office of Human Rights.
All right. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Doing all
Can you
right.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much for having me with you. I'm just going to, tell you a little bit about what we did last year in the fair housing testing that our office conducted, and then what we've got planned coming up for 2026. And happy to answer any questions that you might have. So again, my name is Anna Maynard. I'm with the Office of Human Rights. We investigate complaints of discrimination under the Arlington County Human Rights Ordinance, among some other functions, other hats that we wear. But in context of fair housing, that's what our office is responsible for. And in May or so of 2024, we commissioned the Equal Rights Center to conduct fair housing testing for Arlington's rental housing market. The purpose of this was to sort of broadly assess what prospective renters may be experiencing during their housing search, and if there's any discrimination or concerns that we may have around fair housing as people go about trying to find housing in Arlington County. So between May and August of 2024, the Equal Rights Center conducted 65 rental tests across 56 unique properties managed by 48 different housing providers. And this is what we found, broken down by the protected classes that we looked at in this particular study. Under disability, we did 15 phone tests, and we had one test that showed potential discrimination related, in this case, to a emotional support animal. 3 of the tests that we conducted were inconclusive and will require additional follow-up or retesting to look at whether or not we have any issues around disability, discrimination, and reasonable accommodation in housing. The next basis that we looked at was familial status. There were 10 matched pair phone tests, and 2 of those indicated possible discrimination, and 2 were inconclusive. We also looked at national origin. There were 20 email tests and 5 in-person tests that we conducted. 4 email tests suggested potential discrimination, and 1 of these was retested. All 5 in-person tests were inconclusive. And then we did source of funds, which is something a little bit more recently added to our human rights ordinance. We definitely wanted to look at whether or not we could identify any issues in that area. 15 phone tests were conducted. 6 of those showed some potential discrimination, and 1 was inconclusive. So those are the areas that were evaluated in the most recent testing that we looked at. These results highlight some areas where we may have some issues, where there's a lack of understanding among housing providers, where discrimination may occur because of that, and where additional testing and monitoring is needed. So we are looking forward now to 2026. We have again partnered with the Equal Rights Center, and we're going to begin doing the next round of fair housing testing. We're going to be starting with that in February. So we will be looking again at these same bases that we tested already, because we want to sort of see, are we continuing to see trends in this area? These are the areas that we thought were the most significant or most important for us to look at. So we're going to go back and test those again. And we're also going to implement 4 targeted training sessions aimed at our housing providers in Arlington County to ensure that they're aware of how to comply with the Fair Housing Act, with the County Human Rights Ordinance, and Virginia law. So those trainings, we're getting started with those in January. We're going to cover source of funds. That'll be the first thing that we look at. doing that a training, a live training on. Then additionally, we're going to cover reasonable accommodation and service animals. We're going to go back again and do source of funds again, just to ensure that our housing providers are really fully aware of all of the different types of rental assistance that folks in Arlington may be using as they go out looking for housing. And then we're going to kind of make have a fourth one, sort of a TBD. We're still looking at what topic we want to focus in on that for that fourth one. But that's what we have planned going forward in 2026. And hopefully we will see some really good results out of this process. And we're really looking forward to talking to our housing providers and sharing more information about what we have to offer for fair housing in Arlington. So that's an overview of what we have done and what we have planned. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything you have additional information I can give you.
Yeah, thank you. So for the potential case of discrimination, which the lingo in the industry, we say potential because it's not confirmed until there's been an investigation, but it's essentially discrimination. What is the follow-up on those cases? Like, is there any action that the county takes to say like, oh, if you discriminate here, one, that is illegal, but two, you're probably doing it to other people as well. So what specific action does the county take for those landlords, those property managers that during testing are found to be, potentially discriminating?
Well, because it is potential discrimination, we don't have we don't have an enforcement ability to do something that's potential or might have happened. We don't have an actual complainant, where we can show that there was, we can do an investigation and show that there was harm. So that's why we want to focus on this education piece to see where are the gaps. Why are people not aware of what the fair housing laws are, what our county ordinance says? There's some differences, and the county has, different options for rental assistance and things like that. So we're really trying to focus on a proactive approach so that we can help to improve the situation. If we identify issues that we need to do, further work with these landlords, a particular landlord that may have a particular issue, then we can certainly try to work with them and see if we can, ensure that there's no discrimination happening. But we're really focused on a proactive approach and trying to prevent discrimination from happening when people are out there that are applying for housing.
So I know the county human rights ordinance doesn't allow the Office of Human Rights to initiate their own complaints, whereas at the federal level and at the state level, they can do that based off of testing cases. And you have other testers like the Housing Rights Initiative that this year did a lot of source of funds testing in Arlington, and they found about 30% out of the 102 tests that they conducted, they found potential discrimination based on source of funds. So they referred their cases to the Attorney General's office for them to, start the process to, enforce the law against those landlords. Is that something? I understand that Arlington, they have not yet changed their human rights ordinance as the Housing Commission has recommended, as the NAACP, as HOME, many other fair housing groups have said, please change your ordinance to give yourselves the authority to do what all the other levels of government can do when it comes to fair housing enforcement. But have you guys looked at referring those cases to the state office of fair housing or the Attorney General for them to, begin the enforcement process and or conciliation at least?
We have not looked at doing that in this process. We have not, pulled out any particular landlords and referred them for any kind of enforcement action. Certainly, if we continue to see an issue at a particular landlord, we may, have that discussion, but we haven't done that at this point.
It might be something to look at as you guys design the contract for the 2026 testing, just giving that as an option within the contract to have ERC take complaints or take test cases to the state, for further action, since they can't take them just to Arlington. Because I know that's something that happens regularly, through other third-party testing. the $30,000 that's Office of Human Rights received as part of the current fiscal year for additional like fair housing, education, and enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about how that money has been allocated or will be allocated through the rest of the fiscal year?
So that's for this process that, we're going to do the testing. We're also going to do these 4 testing, training sessions that are already planned. We're getting started with that in January. We're going to do the first training on source of funds will be in January. We're doing that in partnership with the Equal Rights Center. So we've had that kickoff meeting already. We're getting ready to launch that. And then we're going to be doing those periodically throughout the year. I think every 2 or 3 months we'll have a session planned. Those are going to be live interactive sessions on Zoom. We're going to try to target those to the Arlington landlords so that we can make sure that we're getting people in Arlington who really need to have that training, the people who are in the rental offices, in the leasing offices, interacting with people on the day-to-day basis when people walk in off the street or call or email or put an application in or whatever the case is. So that's how we're really trying to do this education piece, to see if we can, we'd rather sort of lead with the carrot than the stick if we can teach people and train people and get people on board and understanding what is expected and what's required of them by the law and what the resources are in the county. We would really like to be able to work in partnership with our housing providers to do that.
Can you talk about, I know, as I mentioned before, there's been a lot of advocacy and push to change the human rights ordinance to make sure that the county has the full range of powers that they can have to enforce fair housing. Has there been any action within the Office of Human Rights around looking at those changes? And is there any dialogue happening with the county manager and the county board about like, let's push forward some of those? And I don't know too if the Human Rights Commission has taken that up yet, but if you can provide any more information about what's happened thus far or what may be happening, in the next few months or so with that'd be helpful.
Sure. I mean, there's certainly always an interest in making sure that our human rights ordinance is as effective as it can be, and that we're able to provide the services that our community needs to enforce the human rights ordinance. I don't know of anything specific right now. The Human Rights Commission is sort of fairly new in the new membership, and they haven't really organized around what changes they might want to request or discuss with in terms of recommending something to the county board. But that's certainly something that we can bring up with them and ask them to discuss that and make some consideration on what they might want to do.
Sounds good. I know it's also there's a number of goals related to fair housing in the fair housing, or related to the Office of Human Rights in the fair housing plan that the county approved in 2023. And one of those is pursuing becoming a fair housing assistance program with HUD. Mm-hmm. Can you provide any update? Because I know we had Gurjeet here in January and we had HUD here to talk about, that process and what that looked like. Has there been any progress or anything that's happened since January to explore moving forward, becoming a fair housing assistance program?
We've not at this point. It's something we're interested in discussing and looking at, and whether or not we have the resources to do that, and where that program kind of is. Currently, it's not really clear on what kind of funding is available or how how functional that may be right now. So it's something that we're kind of discussing and looking at as a potential for the future, but we don't have a plan to do it in the immediate.
Okay.
We do accept, we do accept and can and do investigate complaints for housing discrimination all the time and under the Human Rights Ordinance. So we do have that capacity to have that for our community to do investigations, discrimination in housing under the Human Rights Ordinance that we currently have in the county.
And Katie, sorry, one more question and then I'll turn it over to you. Sorry. So I know Gurjeet has left the office, and for those who don't know, Gurjeet was the executive director of the Human Rights Commission and also the associate county manager for the Office of Human Rights and Equal Opportunity. So she had a lot of fancy titles. Do you know, is there a timeline? Is there any more information the county has about what that role looks like? I believe you're in the acting role now. Do you have any information you can share about whether they are planning to fill that role permanently, or if there's another plan for office leadership?
I mean, I don't really have any specific details for you. There are, a couple of different things that the county manager is working on, roles he's filling, economic development director as well, and some other things. So I think with, early in the new year, likely there'll be some update on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Katie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions, Kellen. I just wanted to ask also, in addition to the training you're doing with property managers, what about, are you doing any sort of education with residents about their rights and the fact that they shouldn't be discriminated against for source of funds? Just because the last report we heard was that there weren't a lot of reports to your office or complaints to your office, and it's possible that people just don't know about their rights or don't feel comfortable speaking out or don't know what to do.
Well, this current plan that we have for training with the Equal Rights Center is going to be focused on housing providers, leasing agents, and those folks, just to make sure that they are aware of what their responsibilities are and the requirements are of the law. Certainly, we are always trying to do outreach and to make sure people know that the Office of Human Rights is available, what the Human Rights Ordinance covers, what we can do for folks, and what kinds of things people can bring to us. So, yeah, we're doing that all the time and hoping to do more of that. But this particular plan that we have with the Equal Rights Center is going to really be focused on those housing providers to make sure that they know what their requirements are. Excuse me.
I had another question. I'm curious how closely the Office of Human Rights is working with the Department of Human Services. So you probably saw, as part of the Housing Choice Voucher strategic plan that DHS was putting together as required by HUD, they did focus groups of HCV recipients, and they talked about housing discrimination as part of that. And a lot of the residents and I can't remember if it was a majority or all the residents in the focus group talked about how they do feel like they're being discriminated against because they're voucher recipients. And there were a lot of different specific things that they brought up that they felt like the property managers, the leasing offices were treating them differently because of their source of funds. And I can almost guarantee none of them knew that source of funds is illegal in Arlington, and that I've never met a low-income person in Arlington when I've dealt with a lot of low-income tenants and tried to help them with their issues, and none of them have known that this was against the law or how to report it to the Office of Human Rights or to the state or HUD. Have you all, been working, or do you have a strong relationship with the Department of Human Services, especially since they had a bunch of these, complaints come out in their focus group sessions and their engagement with their residents or housing choice voucher recipients?
We do have a good relationship with the housing staff at DHS. We work with them all the time on various things. So, but if there's issues that are happening that they're seeing with their clients, we could certainly reconnect and make sure that they know that they can refer their clients to us. So we're happy to talk to them. And if it's something that we can address, our scope is not as broad as sometimes people wish it was. And sometimes we have to make sure it's something that we can cover, that's covered under the ordinance. But we're always happy to talk to people and find out and, discuss it with them and see if it is something that we can handle and we can take a complaint on and do an investigation on. But if they're seeing that, then that's certainly something that we want to make sure that people know that we are here and we are available, and they can reach out to our office and bring their issue, and we'll be glad to talk to them about it. So we can reconnect again with DHS folks and remind them, hey, we're here. Let us know if we can help you.
Yeah, sounds good. I think it would be great if you all could reach out to them again and just say like, hey, we're happy to figure out how to help these folks who feel like they're being discriminated against. Another thing that came up, sorry, I think there was a Human Rights Commission meeting maybe a couple months ago, and I think it got some media attention where they were asking about the conciliation process. So after a complaint's been filed, staff in the office investigate, and if it's found that the landlord, whomever, likely violated our human rights ordinance, there's a conciliation process with them and with the person who filed the complaint. And I'm not using the right terms, but to try to work out a solution. And my understanding from the meeting and from the news article was that if the conciliation process fails, that the Office of Human Rights just drops the case and doesn't pursue it any further. Is that not the case?
No, that's not exactly what would happen. No, the conciliation is the first step. If we do have a finding of a violation of the ordinance, then the first obligation is for us to try to resolve it, to conciliate it, to come to an agreement between the parties. If we're unable to do that, then there is the possibility that we would go back to the Human Rights Commission and discuss the possibility of a public hearing. And then it's up to the Human Rights Commission to determine whether or not a public hearing is the appropriate step, or should some other step be taken. But we don't just drop it and do nothing.
That's helpful.
So I'm not sure. Not sure that's not quite accurate way to. But we may not always have public hearings, but there are options and different. It just depends on the individual situation.
Sounds good. Yeah, it didn't. When I read about it, it didn't make sense, and it seemed like there was probably some confusion over like how the process is working, because that didn't. I know that's not how the process is supposed to work. So that's super helpful clarification. Other questions or comments for Anna? Go ahead.
I would just encourage you guys to, if possible, try to do more education with, like, proactive education with residents in addition to the proactive engagement with the landlords. Yeah.
Okay, that's great feedback. I appreciate that, and we will definitely look at ways we can do that.
Go ahead, Elena.
Hi, I think I just didn't understand, and I was trying to hope you'd go back to it. But for the items, or I guess the cases for the disability, was it right that all of the actions were inconclusive? Was that how you?
No, I think 3 were inconclusive. Check my notes, just make sure I'm telling you right. We had 15 phone tests, and 1 showed potential discrimination related to an emotional support animal. And then 3 of the tests were inconclusive about whether or not.
Okay.
So they.
Thank you. I think I heard that wrong. So thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was actually the one that surprised me the most, because disability cases are the most common form of fair housing discrimination cases across the country. So I would have thought out of all of them that would have been high. But I also know that source of funds is just sort of blatantly violated everywhere. So that one, that did not surprise me. So if there's no other questions or comments, I did have this as an action item because I would like us to consider writing a letter to the board to continue, as we have been asking them for a couple of years now, to continue to provide sufficient resources and prioritization for fair housing enforcement, education, within the Office of Human Rights and our county government. I'm happy to include, a recommendation that the county look at more proactive engagement with residents about their rights as well. And that I think we should also include a recommendation again that the county, take actions to become a fair housing assistance program, and take whatever other actions are consistent with the fair housing plan from 2023 that we have not made progress on yet as a community. And I outlined a lot of this in an email from September, which you all may not remember, but yeah, any questions about doing a letter on this? Go ahead, Katie.
Just one more comment. Maybe we could reach out to DHS and see if they would want to also train their own clients and do some of that outreach. But yeah, I think letter is a good idea.
Okay. Okay. And as always, I'll send it the letter. We can finalize the language. But do I have a motion to move forward with the letter?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the letter.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And I can do a roll call, but 1 second, let me. Nope, that doesn't have everyone's name on it. Sorry, just trying to make sure I don't leave anyone out. Okay. And I'm not looking at the Microsoft Teams to see who's online, but I'll just call it names anyways. Commissioner Montgomery.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Coleman. Okay. Commissioner Ross.
Yes.
Commissioner Fierro.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Yes.
Commissioner Surface.
Yes.
Commissioner Wenger.
Yes.
Commissioner McGilvray.
Yes.
Commissioner Blake.
Yes.
Commissioner Linick. Okay, and I vote yes as well. Okay, that passes.
Oh, excuse me. Mic wasn't working.
Do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, Anna, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the work that you all are doing. And hopefully with some sustained advocacy over time, we'll get more resources dedicated to fair housing enforcement, and we'll become the best example of what that looks like in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. That is my hope.
That sounds good.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Community Engagement Task Force recommendations. And I want to start by saying thank you so much to Katie and everyone who's on the task force for doing such a great job with this. I think it was probably more work than some people thought it might be, but doing community engagement is a lot of work. And especially when we're trying to reach out to historically marginalized and underrepresented populations throughout the community. So I think that, Katie especially, but the entire task force really put in a lot of effort to gather information, but also come up with some really good recommendations about how the county and the Housing Commission can do better when it comes to community engagement for historically marginalized folks. So I do want to say that the task force has adopted the recommendations as their final report to the Housing Commission. So Katie will, assuming that you're okay, presenting the recommendations to the Housing Commission. We'll review them and then decide what we want to do with them as a commission. But I think the recommendation is that we send them to the county board, and we also reflect on the ones that are relevant to our own commission, and any changes that we can consider making to how we do business to be more equitable. With that, Katie, feel free to move forward.
Thank you. Thanks for that nice introduction. Just to clarify, Kellen, are we intending to, in this meeting, ask if there are any changes that people want to make to the recommendations, or is it more of just like a yes/no approval?
So the commission can change the recommendations however they want. They can't change that the task force adopted a certain set of recommendations, but the housing commission, they can decide not to move forward with all of them. With some of them, they could change some, add some. It depends on how long people want to be here tonight.
Right.
But yeah, it's, hopefully people will, think critically. I'm not sure if people had a chance to look at them in advance because unfortunately we were still getting data in right up until like yesterday. And thank you, Katie, for and Karen for helping to get that into the final report. Down to the wire. But yeah, so it's open for people to make changes, or if they think something's missing, or if they don't like something, they can raise that as the Housing Commission decides how it wants to move forward with the report that we have from the task force.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and big thank you to all of you guys who were on the task force, as well as those who aren't here tonight, but Karen, Nikki, Joe, and let's see, Alice, and then there were others who aren't here right now, but did a great job really doing tabling, survey collection, listening sessions, and creating recommendations. So I'm just going to start just by assuming nobody read last minute. I'm just going to quickly run through the slides of our findings and then show you guys the recommendations list. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so we started this subcommittee. It was Callan's idea, but we did it starting in February with the goal of creating recommendations on how the county staff, county government, and the Housing Commission can increase participation in housing policy decision-making for historically marginalized communities in Arlington. With the idea that these communities are not as often represented as homeowners and wealthier people in these, engagement processes usually. So one of the big things we did was survey collection. We collected a total of 248 surveys. There were actually a few more that we weren't even able to tally, but this was a great number. And actually, big shout out to Kiddist Ebenezer from the ECDC, who she and her colleagues collected 140 responses from clients. These are predominantly immigrants who are, coming for events and receiving services from ECDC. One of such events was about like housing resources, and there's many other services they provide. And then we collected the other about 100 responses by tabling at a lot of different events and food distributions at different CAF properties, as well as, the diaper bank at Arlington Mill, food distributions, and Karen collected some from LEDC. So yeah, we had a good response. We had 167 were in English, 42 in Spanish, and 39 were collected in Amharic. So these are just some quick demographics of the people who responded to the survey. We had a very diverse group of people respond, a lot of whom were ECDC folks, but also the other folks that we surveyed. We had almost all were renters, almost 90% were renters, which is really a big group that we were trying to target. We also had a big range of household incomes, but predominantly under, you could say probably mostly under 60% AMI. And then from a variety of zip codes, although the biggest part were from 22204. We just asked as an intro question, like, what housing issues are people experiencing? And very consistently, people are experiencing high rent and increases in rent, as well as difficulty affording to buy a home. This was a big topic. I mean, people tended to really focus on the housing issues that they're experiencing. But then we asked, did you know that Arlington County seeks inputs from residents on housing policies? And the majority of people did not even know that these engagement opportunities exist. So this did, show that more outreach is needed on the part of the county. However, 93% of people said they want to make their voice heard in these decisions. So that's good news. They just need to make that connection. People need to be able to access that. And most people had not been involved before. We asked what barriers make it harder for people to participate in engagement. And when we say engagement, we mean like a variety of things. Any of the engagement the county does on site plans, area plans, sector plans, funding in the budget for housing priorities, etc. So it's kind of a variety of different topics. The vast majority, the biggest answer was that people have a lack of information, which makes sense since most people had never even heard that they can participate. But people also said lack of time and language barriers were the next two big options, as well as accessibility and technology issues. What would make it easier for people to participate? The biggest one, again, was having more information about housing policies and how to participate. Moving, what methods of outreach would people prefer? The biggest response was in-person meetings, basically. We didn't differentiate between like meetings versus like tabling, but I personally would kind of count this as both, like under this answer, like in person. People said like they want them to keep the county to come to them where they are, basically. So, and the others, there was a variety of different things that people also liked. So we also did, okay, I'll stop here. I don't know if I should stop here for questions, or I guess I'll just keep going and I'll stop for questions after that. So we also did 40 listening sessions with 40 people, including 3 different AHC properties, one of which is more of a senior property. I didn't write that in, but I think Hunter Park is more of a senior property, as well as a couple of APS teachers and the Langston Citizens Association. We also met with staff and representatives from other organizations to kind of hear what their takes were. And then in terms of the listening session results, people tended to say that there were different barriers to participation, similar to our survey. A lot of people have competing responsibilities and just have, trouble getting to meetings. A lot of people, I know the county is working on doing language interpretation, but it's still in practice, is not always available, or people don't know it's there, or it's a different language that they need. Also, some people don't even have access to a computer or any type of device, especially newcomers. So that is a challenge when everything seems to be online. Some people are worried or afraid of speaking out because they're afraid about retaliation. For example, we did a listening session at one property, and they were experiencing serious, maintenance, property issues with management. And so we told them, they're like, what do we do? And we said, well, technically you should go talk to the Tenant Landlord Commission, report at one of their meetings with public comment, but you should know that this meeting is recorded and posted on YouTube. And they're like, well, I don't feel comfortable being recorded and posted on YouTube. I'm worried about ICE. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. A retaliation from property management. Also, just a lot of people don't understand how these processes work. And even people like me, don't always understand the lingo that goes into housing processes, like what's an SPRC or a site plan. And also a lot of people kind of feel more strongly about the issues that they can see right in front of them, like their issues with maintenance and property management. And they may not realize that some of these area plans and things like that do actually impact them, but more indirectly in terms of providing more housing opportunities, or just different laws in the county, policies, people tended to pivot away from the whole like policy aspect and just kind of focus on their immediate building, which makes sense, but sometimes that connection needs to be made. So these are a couple takeaways that we inferred from the listening sessions about meeting residents where they are, expanding outreach and trusted communication. We're going to get into this in the recommendations, but like more accessibility, language support, and building trust. So by responding to people's concerns and issues and needs that they bring to the county. So I'm going to pause there, and any questions so far on the results that we found? Hi,
ahead,
yeah,
Jason.
Jason.
Yeah, just a comment. I think it's surprisingly low. I thought the number of people that said maintenance issues in comparison, that sounds pretty good. Is that not good or better than expected?
That is a great question. Yeah, I would have expected a little higher too. That doesn't mean it's not a problem, because I think in listening sessions it was definitely a problem that we did, listening sessions in CAF properties, but I guess high rent is such a pervasive issue for everybody. I don't know. Karen.
So I was inputting these surveys until I was almost cross-eyed, and I noticed that a lot of the people that were responding were just really concerned about rent, and they were just so happy. I mean, I don't know. I just got the sense that they were just concerned about affordability, and they hadn't thought much further past that. A lot of these people that are newly arrived immigrants. So I took that to heart when I was entering these surveys. And I don't know, I got sort of like the feeling that these people were just so happy to be heard. I don't know, that sounds kind of corny, but I really have to applaud Kiddist for getting all these people to complete these surveys. I was just amazed that somebody that's a trusted person in the community can get so many people to respond. So I think we really need to work on that. I mean, work on getting more people in the community that people feel comfortable with sharing their concerns. That's just my takeaway from doing the data input.
Good thing we have a recommendation around that, Karen. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, just to kind of go off what Karen was saying, to highlight one of the points that Katie made about residents just having lower levels of knowledge of what the county is doing in terms of some of their outreach efforts. I mean, the fact that a trusted community partner was able to get so many responses, right, that it's just almost overwhelming, and gives a really good picture of what priorities are for a lot of our residents, I think is indicative of what good outreach looks like. And I'm really hoping that the county takes that to heart. As you said, we have a recommendation for this, and attempts to integrate some of this work further into their outreach efforts, because I mean, the first step is just making sure that people understand that resources are available or what is going on in the county. If that's not even being achieved, then it's hard for us to get a sense of like what the magnitude of an issue even is, right? Because there's so many people who aren't even being counted in the conversation. So I just really applaud all the work that the working group did, and really hope that the county takes their findings to heart.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian and Karen. Any other quick questions before we move on to the recommendations?
I did have a question for the full commission. Do people want to take a 5-minute break before we dive into the recommendations, or are people good to just continue?
Break.
Katie, did you say you wanted a break?
Yeah, I vote
Okay.
break.
Then since you're presenting, how about we do a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 9:07
Thanks. Sounds good.
Okay. See you all at 9:07. Hey, it is 9:07. Welcome back, everyone. Katie, do you want to pick it up with the presentation of the rest of the report?
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm gonna share. I'm just gonna share the doc that we've been working off of. Can everybody see this?
Now I can.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So these are our draft findings / recommendations. So this is just a little background about why, Kellen really recommended that we establish this task force to identify these barriers to participation, create recommendations for increasing participation, develop recommendations for ways the county can enhance communication with the public about affordable housing programs and activities, and partner with the county board office to hold a housing community conversation. Unfortunately, we were not able to do that event because the county board office didn't really take us up on it. But we held meetings throughout this year, and I already went over these statistics about the responses that we got. One note, I would like to send the county board also the slides with the statistics. It would be nice if maybe we could put that on our website and have like a link to it, Alex, if possible. Okay. So now
Yes,
this
we
is
already do. Yep.
okay. Thanks. Do you have the updated one from like
Uh,
today or yesterday?
I can share the links in the chat shortly.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, because we did add a fair amount of data yesterday, basically, or Tuesday. So yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is the updated one. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So basically, this data collection shows that historically marginalized groups and renters are underrepresented in the feedback the county gathers about housing policies. We also got from the county staff about past engagement efforts they had done and what like the demographics were of people who responded to those. So I gave some examples here of like the budget feedback for this, the last round. A much higher percentage of the survey respondents were homeowners compared to the Arlington population. It was 77% versus 37%. Also higher percentage for white. So this is like a general trend that, we kind of notice a lot, but we saw that in that report from the county. Now that is just the survey part, and they did do other outreach, but this is just showing that, if there's just like a survey out there, that usually the responses gathered are not going to be representative of the county as a whole, and the county really needs to do more targeted outreach to the historically marginalized groups to make sure that they're heard from. We do want to acknowledge the efforts that the county's already doing, which I think we had a presentation about it in, I believe it was a task force meeting and not a full housing commission meeting this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the county has been moving in this direction of doing more pop-ups at committed affordable properties and focus groups with historically marginalized groups for the a comprehensive plan update, hiring community ambassadors, and they do have a ongoing partnership with the Bugatti Tenants Association and other organizations to do engagement. So we're really, glad that the county is doing these things, but given the survey results, we do think the county needs to do more. So these are the recommendations that our recommendations are addressing these 8 barriers or these 8 topics, which I'm just gonna, I don't know if I need to read through them now because we're just gonna see them in a second. But I'm gonna move on to barrier number 1. Okay, so barrier number 1 is, again, this lack of awareness that people do not understand these policies enough to participate. And then I gave some statistics about, the people that aren't aware from the survey, lack of information, people need more information. We also noticed in our listening sessions just that people don't seem to know much about housing policies and how engagement processes work. And people are, not likely to complete online surveys. I mean, we even saw that in our outreach. We handed out a lot of flyers with a link to the survey. We sent out the link to the survey and multiple different organizations, and almost nobody filled it out. I think like 2 people filled it out online. Almost everybody did it when we literally gave them a paper survey and had them fill it out in front of us. So that's just an example of how, in-person outreach is so important. I'm going to pause right there before we move into the recommendations for this. And are there any comments or questions on what we've covered so far? Okay. So yeah, number one is the biggest issue and the biggest number of recommendations. So we're recommending that the county staff continue and expand partnerships with community organizations that are trusted messengers. We saw this with ECDC and the amazing work they did. But some other examples are they could work with public schools, congregations, continue their work with Bugada and expand that. Continue and expand their work with resident services at CAF properties, etc. We believe that these are organizations that will do the best job in terms of connecting with residents, learning about their needs, and also educating them about housing policies and ways to participate in engagement. So we really recommend that the county work on doing contracts with these organizations or other types of partnerships. We also recommend that the county communications really stay clear and simple. I think an example is, there's a web page that shows like upcoming feedback opportunities and site plans. And even myself, when trying to fill out a survey for a site plan, I was confused about what they were asking. It was very technical, very detailed. So it would be really helpful to simplify as much as possible to a broad audience, help people understand why should I care and what can I do is really important. So connecting the dots for people about why it's important. Also doing, the county themselves can do education and training on housing policies with residents, especially targeting groups that are not heard from about why, how like building more housing is going to actually help them by lowering rents overall, or just understanding different types of rental assistance and different types of resources. This is really important to connect the dots about why would people want to participate and how their voice matters. The county can also train the trainer in terms of these trusted messengers. One area that we don't think is it's not as easy to target, but it's important, is the market rate affordable units that are, don't have such a structure of resident services like the CAF properties, but are a really important group of people that's very large that need outreach. So we think the county should work with the property managers at those properties to do outreach with them. They do have a list at least of all these property owners, but more outreach is needed. Also with condo associations, we had an idea of having a letter, welcome to Arlington letter to anyone who moves to the county, however that's determined, whether it's driver's license, to kind of just like be a nice positive introduction to how people can get involved in county decision making. Potentially pilot with new CAF residents. And then we think that the staff could create like short videos that start off housing commission meetings or any commission meetings and SBRC meetings, so that members of the public who show up aren't just thrown into the deep end, that they feel like they have a little explanation about what these commissions do and how they work. Videos could also work for other housing policy education. And then finally, using different types of media that not just like online surveys, but also paper and flyers and other types is important too. So in terms of number one, what comments do people have? What do people think about these recommendations?
I think they're good, Katie, but I was on the task force and directly involved in drafting this. So,
right. Thanks.
I also think they're great, but I also was involved, so.
Right. I guess like half of us were probably involved. So
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think these are pretty good. I'm just looking at this is a subsection I of where the county board could engage more with trusted messengers. And that one stood out particularly because there are so many organizations in Arlington that do a lot of this work already. And I think in order to reduce redundancies in our outreach, it would really behoove the county to work with those that already have like the credibility in certain communities to do this. So I just gravitated towards that, but I think this all looks great, and making sure that folks are aware of what the county is doing and communicating this as clearly as possible is I think where they can really step up.
thanks for that, Brian. Anything else?
Hi, Katie, it's Alice. I just also on the task force, thank you so much to all of you who compiled all the information that we gathered and the survey results and all that we got. So this is a wonderful document. And I guess a little bit piggybacking on what Brian was saying, I was thinking that I must admit, it just came recently, so I haven't even been through the whole document myself, but if perhaps it's at the bottom, but I'm thinking about, the efforts that the county is making, and in their own efforts, it's like different divisions, different offices, they are doing their own outreach. What's their own, do they have a more unified or coordinated outreach effort that would, where folks from different divisions or offices or whatever departments would look and be like, oh, these are the trusted people. These are the blah, blah, blah. Like, is everybody in the county recreating the wheel? That's my big question. And then how it comes back maybe to this group would be, what are our next steps? Is it worth talking to people or having a meeting with county manager staff, or maybe, the upper levels of CPHD to share this document, talk about this document, and see how people want to, try to integrate any of these ideas into what they're doing, or tell us what they're already kind of like that next step. How do we all get on the same page kind of thing, I guess is what I'm thinking about, because it was a lot of hard work. And just as you said, I feel like when we were with people, either giving them the survey to fill it on their own, or literally sitting there and asking, would you like me to fill it out for you? And literally filling these out. That's how we got answers from folks who do not have time, energy, information, trust, all the barriers. So I think the county needs to see that's really where we get the information, and how do we actually integrate that. And one example is the SPRC, which is coming up on the list. Why is that not a standard practice right now, that between staff and whoever the developer is, they identify a current or local nearby or someone to speak on behalf? Why is that not even a thing right now? So I guess that's kind of where my brain is going, where we did all this work, what's next? But I might be jumping ahead. So
I think you're jumping ahead a little bit, Alice, on the what comes next, because the commission has to decide if we approve of this as a commission, and we at least want to make these recommendations. And then I think we can talk about what we would do after that. But I think they're very valid questions. Jason?
Yeah, I definitely approve of these recommendations. The one I like, barrier 7, is I think a really big one, and points to larger, conversations on engagement. And it's about, sector and area plans, and just engagement on, most, it's no surprise that most of Arlington's lower income and, historically disadvantaged communities are only in certain locations in Arlington. So when you do any sort of engagement on a potential development or policy affecting area where those people don't live, what are you going to do? All right, call people. We need to, come up here to speak or something. So I think it goes to a broader way of saying, it's well, this is it, when you do engagement for the full county policy wide, that when you put the weight on that, that doesn't really burden when you start going down, because, as you go down to sector plans, site plans, and individual parcels on things, it's very difficult to get the people that are going to directly benefit to actually come out and voice their support. That only comes in like 3 levels back when you're doing the high level, okay, we need to do X goal. So, putting the higher weight and putting plans and policies and things at the high level. And, this is an example for, the Lucky Gardens, for example. There are residents that can come back that could participate because they live there. But most of the other residents that are going to be living there are probably not from, whatever, in a couple block radius, or even in the north of Route 50 or wherever. So it really makes it. But because of the Langston Boulevard plan specifies so many things, it essentially takes off the table certain conversations that we're still having as we get down to individual site level sort of things, which I think it gets into that whole level of it's kind of like, federalism with the government. It's like, we have that sort of federalism within the county and policy. So it's like, if you have a certain policy or a certain prescriptive standard, it's like, if that has been met, why would engagement still take place? Debating those merits, in the more detailed conversations. And I think that it is important to let residents know, say, hey, like, that are directly, whatever, neighbors or whatever. It's like, the ability to say, no, we heard your feedback on this, but this has already been decided, sort of deal. And I think that gets to the engagement. I think that can really highlight positive equities, because once you have established certain principles at any stage of development, before the development or any plan has come, you have a legal framework to say you are legally entitled to do X because it has already been decided. And that alone, I think, provides ways of equity to capture the full benefit that benefits hundreds, if not thousands, of more people, versus the other maybe handful of immediate neighbors who may not like whatever. So I think that is really consideration in terms of equity and being able to really capture the full engagement without necessarily saying, oh, well, yeah, we had this SPRC, 10 people spoke against it, no one was there to support it. But you can say, well, we know because we have literally thousands of people that just did the survey that said, X, whatever, this would be a benefit. So I think that's a good framework to think about as going to next level things and creating engagement frameworks that really highlight that and communicating that to residents to say that, this is what has been decided based on the totality of our community, because we are a full community and not just based off of people's thinking of, that they can control things off their property line based on, the dozen or so people that surround a certain development project. So that's just kind of the high level things that I wanted to pull out.
Thanks, Jason. You jumped ahead right to the end, but that's okay. Katie, did you want to get into the second barrier?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I should just address Jason's point now. Even though
sure. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, and thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you read ahead and thought about that. And I personally also agree that I think it's important for the county to weight the area and sector plans more, and make sure those are really good. And then when it gets to the level of the site plan, it can create costly delays to have too much engagement for each site plan on every little thing. I think we did not really recommend that in this, although we did have that point number 7 about area plans being more representative. I'm just asking, I guess, Jason, if you are suggesting an additional recommendation or anything changed in here, or if that's just kind of a note for us to keep in mind.
No, just a note. I mean, this is I have no further. I'm just saying this is to carry forward as successive rounds. It's a larger conceptual framework of things, but I think this addresses fully all the things that Deb set out. So I have no additions.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, so I'll try to keep this moving quickly, but I'm just gonna start with number 2. Barrier that many residents are not interested in participating in housing policy engagement because they do not see how it impacts their lives. Why should I go to a commission or SPRC meeting? How does that affect me? Again, in our listening sessions, many residents tend to focus on their, issues, their pretty serious issues with their building rather than, or their own, affordability rather than broad housing policies that the county's doing. So how can we, I guess, show people that their voice does matter and, it will even indirectly impact them. Again, we recommend providing education on housing policy and how it impacts people with concepts like this housing supply, housing shortage, for example. Also just supporting development of resident councils and tenant associations at all CAF properties. I know from my personal experience that being part of a community organization is really what got me into housing policy and connecting the dots of how housing policy can really impact me and my community. So, if people are connected in this way, then they have a much better opportunity to kind of speak out and be organized and talk to the county about their needs. So I know Kellen's been always pushing for this, but we really want to recommend the county work with Bugatti or others to support the development of resident councils, especially at CAF buildings. Also, C, I think is really important. This is kind of related to, people need to also have their needs met in order to feel like they trust the county enough to go participate in these county processes. So, it's important to kind of go hand in hand. And as you're asking for feedback, also provide those, have you heard about our rental assistance program or whatever, or how can, you report an issue you're having with your building. And then we also recommended having big signage and A-frames near site plan projects to help people visualize, this is the building that's going to be built here. Maybe I care about this, and how can I get involved? Any comments or questions on number 2? Okay, moving to number 3. Residents have, this is addressing the lack of time issue that 33% of survey respondents said people have competing responsibilities, and that might not be their highest priority to participate. Some of our recommended solutions include exploring some sort of compensation system to encourage greater participation of lower income residents in these meetings. Or also in civic education opportunities like Arlington Neighborhood College. Just a note, I know that Montgomery County is doing a planning academy where people can basically sign up to learn about how planning works. And I don't remember if it has a stipend or not. I would have to check, but that's a good example of something that we could do. We did explore compensation instead of saying definitely do compensation, because there was a little bit of disagreement within the task force, but we think it's worth looking into. Continue the targeted in-person outreach, coming right to where people are in their building or in their neighborhood location. And then also continuing some of the county's practices to offer meals and childcare and other things that make it easier for people to come, which the county does have certain standards for doing that, but just kind of expanding that. Any comments about number 3? Okay, moving along to number 4. Language and accessibility barriers we kind of put together because it was a pretty significant percentage of people who said that language was a barrier for them to participate, or accessibility issues. I will say, yeah, with language, for example, we talked about how if someone wants to testify at a county board meeting or a commission meeting, they have to request interpretation like a week in advance, and they also have to sign up to speak a week in advance. That's a lot for someone to connect to and figure out. So obviously there's no easy solutions, but we really think the county should prioritize providing materials in different languages, outreach in different languages, whether that means, using different, community partners, or hiring more bilingual staff, etc. And technology is also an accessibility issue for some people, as we mentioned, that some people don't have access to that. So we recommend that the county staff develop targeted outreach plans for specific groups of people to reduce barriers to accessibility, encourage engagement, like what works best for those groups. So, people who speak different languages, including other languages besides Spanish as well, like renters at either CAF or market rate affordable properties, senior residents, people with disabilities, immigrants, and people with lower incomes, using non-digital options, as we mentioned above, expanding access to interpretation, as we mentioned, and hiring people who can already communicate in these languages, and holding more engagement events at locations where people already are, so it's easier for them to participate. So any comments or questions on this one?
Katie, I had a couple to add. I've forgotten the name of the initiative right now, and maybe some other folks were around for that. I think it was called like Columbia Pike Initiative or something. That's not right, but the county had a series of in-person events several before COVID, and they were super successful. And it was a dinner, and it was, interpretation, all that, like very large community events where like 50 or 100 people would come, and they got a lot of great feedback, dialogues, individual groups. It was a really productive, and they did it by like topic area. Like there was one on transportation, and there was one on education, and there was one on housing, and like every, I don't know, 6 months or something, they would do this. And it was a really great model right in the community. It was like at the high schools or, different places. So I'll try to find the name of it. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but we might put that back on, here as an example of something that was successful, to add to it. And then there was one other one on what we were talking about just now that I was going to add. Oh, shoot. Oh, I know. In Fairfax County, and maybe other counties too, they provide an opportunity for a video that you can record a video and submit it within some amount of time ahead of a meeting, at your time, at your leisure, whatever. And it's actually played during the meeting as one of the public comment slots. So it really opens up availability. If you're not available on Saturday morning at 9:30 for public comment, or to sit there for 4 hours till your your item comes up, we really are limiting a lot of people. And the fact that you can do it online, or like on the Teams meetings with them, is great. But I do think one step further might be helpful for folks, because even in those situations, a trusted partner in the community could sit down and help someone record it, write out what they want to say. Maybe they'd even partner up with a translator right then, or we could imagine a lot of other methods of empowering folks to get their voices heard on their time from their home, that kind of thing. So just throwing that out as an additional idea.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alice. I think those are both really good things to include, if you guys are all okay with including them.
I have a clarifying question. I'm good with including allowing people to submit videos. Alice, the like dinners you brought up, Are you saying like include those as just examples of things the county's done in the past that were good at, like, getting people to show up and feel comfortable and like their needs are being met, and that things like that should be continued?
I think it's both. One is it's an effort, like, for example, right now we're going through the comp plan update process, to continue to have multiple ways in the community over and over again when a random people happen to be available, happen to hear about it, are, willing to go, not scared to go out at night with ice around, and, 1,000 barriers we're dealing with to keep on offering these things. And like Katie had, we've had on the list, like childcare was provided. There was a meal. I believe they even did something around transportation, like there might have been vouchers or I don't know, but like it was literally like, how can we assist this community in coming together for this purpose? And they thought of like all the ways to make it happen. So I think it's both, both. It's an example of the multiple barriers that you really need to address if you want to get a group together and in a safe and comfortable place where their needs are met. And then also it showed that the county could, and we have here, identified all those different barriers, and they may not be all addressed in a community event like that, but we know what they are. And so what are the ways? In other words, we've identified and overcome them before, so we can do that again. And what we did was also a great method. So it could be an additional or future tool again. So I don't know hopefully that helps, Kellen.
Yeah, so I think you want the county to look at offering periodic like community housing events that include meals, transportation, like other childcare things. Is that a good description of what you were saying?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm forgetting that it was like Columbia Pike Network, or no, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it was an initiative that had a lot of success. So, folks in the county will remember having done it. So I'll find out the name, but maybe we can add that in if people want, just as a, example.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too, if no one else has objections. Thanks, Alice. Okay, I know we are getting close to our time, so I'm going to try to speed through the rest. Okay, so the number 5 was the worry that some people have a distrust and fear of participating, worried about retaliation. And we recommend that the county provide confidential or anonymous ways to participate in engagement to address worries about retaliation. So, that they could have an anonymous hotline to report housing concerns. We have heard from, affordable housing developers that sometimes, they do need to know someone's unit and their name in order to fix a problem with their specific unit. But if there is a case where it's just a more about the building in general or another general issue, it would be great to have a really trusted way to communicate about that to the county, or maybe they could go through a trusted messenger again, and they could keep that line of communication open. Yeah, okay, the trusted messengers is part B. And then making sure to, make clear to people how their information is used and shared by the county if they do participate. I put a note here about the trust policy that the county is committing not to collaborate with ICE unless like legally required to. And I think this is important for the county to keep publicizing. Any comments about number 5? Okay, I'll keep moving. Number 6, this is something that we talked about today, but tenants' interest being underrepresented on site plan review committees, which we saw an example of today, where this project that was, people were being displaced and temporarily and then coming back, but they weren't actually represented. Like there was no representative on the SPRC committee. And there's been other examples of that recently that we listed. We did reach out to county staff, by the way, with our draft recommendations, and they gave us responses, and they said that it's hard to like identify who should be on the site plan review committee if there is no tenant association. However, even though it's challenging, we still believe it's really important for the county to county staff and the SPRC committee to do that outreach and connect with residents and find people to be on the committee, but also to do a lot of engagement in terms of tabling and meetings and things like that. So
Katie,
yeah,
can we, I'd like to recommend that we add Lucky Gardens to this list
yeah.
in the report.
Yeah, is everyone okay if I put that in here? Okay. We'll assume that's a yes. Thanks. Okay, so in terms of recommendations, we recommend that both the staff and the SPRC committee do this targeted outreach. They can also work with property management to figure out what are the best ways to reach residents. Not just like, putting a flyer in everyone's door, but also doing like, if there's existing resident activities or tabling again, info sessions, pop-ups, working with community organizations nearby that a lot of people are part of, and making sure that either people who literally live in that property or nearby but are like renters are represented on the SPRC. And again, supporting the formation of tenant associations will kind of facilitate this. We're repeating the one about the signage and just making that really clear to people. And then this part D is partly because I was going through one of these like surveys online about a site plan, and it was really very focused on the technical details of the setbacks and the bike lane and the parking and like very specific details of the building, and it wasn't really asking broadly like, hey, do you think this is a good thing to have more housing with this building? So I think it would just be nice to like broaden that and just make it more accessible for people, to offer more general comments that aren't just about, oh, I don't like the specific setback height or whatever. And again, making these communications simpler and more accessible. Any comments on number 6?
Katie, I just want to add for B about the formation of tenant associations or councils that it's related to the earlier comment about forming them at like CAF properties, but this is specific to like the county would, if they adopted this, agree that whenever we have a site plan project that involves like an existing residential building being like redeveloped, that the county would, whether they hire Bugatti or Tenants and Workers United or some group to come in and organize a tenant association so that they are organized and they have representation throughout the whole process. And so it's not just at CAF properties, it would be like any redevelopment, to make sure that the tenants are represented, they have a voice throughout that process. And at least there's a temporary tenant association to facilitate that.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Kellen. That's a great point. Okay, anything else in number 6? Okay, number 7, we kind of touched on already, but the barrier here is that area and sector planning, community engagement tends to focus a lot of it on people who are already living in that area. For example, say Langston Boulevard. And, if we're only hearing from people who already live there, that could be a problem because some people can't afford to live there because of historic, discrimination, et cetera. And it really does affect everyone in the county.
Hey, Katie, sorry, did you change the order of 7 and 8?
Yes, I'm sorry. I moved 8 to the end because it's the only one that is about the commission rather than the county staff. And I thought maybe it just would make more sense if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I was looking at the one that was online. I was like, well, hold on a minute. Different numbers.
Sorry.
Okay.
We'll need to update. Yeah, we'll need to update that after this. Thanks. Okay, So however, I will say, they are moving, the county is moving towards trying to get outreach from different neighborhoods, not just that one, like Langston Boulevard. They did do outreach in different locations across the county with like open houses. However, like, it still tends to skew towards people who already live there and also wealthier and more, whiter people basically, and homeowners. So, this bullet here is just saying that it really influences the entire county in terms of rent prices and stuff like that. And also people who are going to like just move around different apartments in the county. So we're saying this should reflect also the future needs and not just the people who already live there. So recommended solutions are balance these needs of low-income and historically marginalized residents in area and sector planning with the needs of existing residents, which of course are also important, but making sure that people aren't left out. And that might require some of this targeted outreach so that, because again, just putting an online survey out there or having an open house, people may not show up to it unless there's more targeted outreach to really specifically get their voices heard. Treat area and sector planning, public engagement more like comprehensive planning because it does impact the whole county. We've seen that the county's done some great outreach for the comprehensive plan update, so we'd like to see more of that. Prioritize engaging with historically marginalized residents when doing planning to ensure their needs are captured. Use tools to encourage discussion about the future needs of the community, and communicate with the broader community how the ripple effects of having these restrictions on density and height may impact, everybody's rental housing prices. Okay, any comments beyond what we've already discussed on number 7?
Katie,
Okay.
I'm not sure where it goes. It just occurred to me as a suggestion. One other thing in that whole idea of going where people already are. I wonder if, not for the commission, but for the county broadly, would be to set up at schools, public schools in the areas within a range of, obviously a sector plan broader, but site plan, that might be a place where, families are coming and going, and that might be a place where it's easier to catch people, just adding to the list of affordable buildings and community centers, but elementary and probably mostly elementary, but other schools too. Families and parents are there, so it's another suggestion I guess you could consider putting on the list.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think schools are a really good place for that. We actually do have that on the list already, among many other things, but yeah, it's up there on the list. Okay, any other comments about number 7 before we move to the last and final one? And thanks to Kellen for doing a lot of the wording on number 7, by the way. Okay. Number 8, this is kind of turning back to target us as a housing commission. So residents are often unaware of what the housing commission is focused on and don't see how their voice is represented on the commission. Again, thanks to Kellen for helping with this, the wording on this one. So many Arlingtonians reported throughout our outreach about being unaware of what the Housing Commission was working on or what we're doing to benefit them. And, we did do a lot of outreach, and it was actually really valuable to kind of inform like what issues should we think about as a commission. So I think this is really important moving forward. That being said, we do have limited resources, so we don't have a lot of resources to kind of become like a communications arm of the county or to organize people or anything like that. So we want to keep that in mind. But it really does help for us to kind of have that communication with residents who are indirectly impacted. So recommended solutions for the Housing Commission would be, first of all, to request approval to do an annual housing forum event and to gather feedback on just generally what housing issues are impacting them. So this would need support from county staff to make it happen. it would be too hard for us to do this all on our own, but this could be really helpful. And then we should also discuss what ongoing community outreach we could do to hear from people. So this could include visits to CAF properties or attending resident meetings. In terms of visits to CAF properties, like what we did was food distributions to talk to people, and like some of them have like, different activities like bingo night or whatever. We could always go there. Going to different, tabling at different events like we did during this outreach, attending different events like with more sort of name tags or like flyers or things that represent us as a housing commission. Partly this would be partly a county staff thing if they wanted to give us any sort of resources for that. And then the county staff also can communicate about our activities in their existing communications media. So I definitely want to get you guys' feedback on this one because it does relate to us. What do you guys think?
And Katie, I wanted to add that one of the previous ones used to be down here as well. It was kind of a duplicate. I think it got moved just up to previous recommendation, but we talked about like doing video intros before commission meetings. So specifically for the Housing Commission, the idea behind that would be like before every meeting, we have like a 1 to 2 minute video that like the county has produced that talks about the Housing Commission, our purpose, how public comment works, and like goes over some of the key terminology or like things that we discuss, so that just people who are walking in off the street or that's the first time they've ever come to a Housing Commission meeting just feel a little bit more like, oh, I know what's happening, and it's not this kind of boring speech that I have to read before every meeting or whoever the chair is. That you could have it be kind of like a more interesting short video that we just press play, and people get that, quick information to help them feel hopefully a little bit, like, okay, I know how to engage here.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That the reason I guess I removed it was just because it was more of a county staff had to be the ones to make the video, but I could add it again and just be like, play these videos and then see the other recommendation kind of thing. Do you think that would make sense?
I think it's fine. Unless people think we should definitely call it out twice. I think when we talk about this with county board members, I will definitely bring that up as a thing that, we want specifically for the Housing Commission, assuming the commission agrees. But yeah, if we want to list it a second time, we can. I don't know that we need to.
Okay, great. So any other suggestions for changes or additions to this before we take a vote to recommend, to submit these recommendations to the county board? Oh, Alice, you're in.
There we go. Thanks. I just had one more. I think we talked about it at the meetings, and I think Alex had said it's difficult to do, but I still want to bring it back up. Just remembering when I was on the Housing Commission, we did have either commission meetings and or committee meetings other places. And as long as my recollection was, as long as it was, publicized ahead of time that this is the location, like the SciFex, plaza or, one of our community centers or something, like to get quote unquote out in the community. That seems like another way, people aren't going to be always coming to the county building, and they're not, if they want to have an interaction rather than online. I do think we could continue to consider ways for the commission to hold its meetings other places.
Alice, I think that he said it was going to be very difficult to do the recording, the audio, the whole 9 yards that we have to do when we do a meeting.
Yeah, I get that. However, I'm on the housing committee of the Commission on Aging, and they hold their meetings at the SciFax building, and it's online. So other public or Arlington buildings are all getting tooled up to be able to be hybrid everywhere now. So I do think there would be at least a couple of places that would be feasible as that, then becomes more regular in a broader number of places. So
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, there's many of these recommendations that if we looked at the feasibility or cost, we'd be like, oh, we have to take those out because the county will never spend money on that, or they will never do X. But like, I think what we've talked about is if it's a good idea, we should put it forward. The county can say it's not feasible, we're not going to do it, but you know, we can still recommend it. Alice, when you had meetings on the Housing Commission before in other places, was attendance different? Was it better, or did you have different people show up from that community? Did it make a difference? I'm not opposed to including it. I don't know. Like, does that actually result in a change?
Yeah, I don't remember that well. I do remember one set of meetings that we had when the county had space at that building that's getting renovated across from Clarendon now. Is it 3303 or something? And people did seem to come to that one, but I can't recall if they were part of a broader committee meeting, a committee or not. You know, this is going back like 10 years. So, I'm sorry, I don't recall, but I think that I don't think there was this kind of effort and focus back then anyways. So it's kind of hard to compare. Like, I think we've all realized the importance of engagement and bringing folks in. So if that kind of an effort were made at a different location, then I think, you know, county, you all, whoever else of us would be looking to notify folks and try to make it worth its while, let's say. So in a way, it's about apples and oranges just because our focus has changed so much of late.
So what if we say something like explore holding commission meetings in alternate locations throughout the county to see if that, you know, increases or, you know, changes who shows up to the meetings?
Yeah, something like that. Sounds good to me. You all decide.
I'm okay with including that. I will say we tried this year twice, I think, and both times it didn't work out. Like we were told we couldn't. But we can put it on there as explore. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Well, my only thought is it gets people a little bit confused if they think that the meeting is supposed to be in a certain place and we start doing it all over the place. Then will they show up at the wrong location when we have a meeting?
That's it.
I mean, that's my only thought. Not that I'm not beholden to holding meetings at the county buildings, but I do know some people get confused.
The only thing I've heard of is like me showing up at the county building when we had a virtual meeting and forgetting that and then having to go home.
I was going to say that's my problem. So,
but could you guys imagine like meeting, like, for example, in one of our affordable housing buildings in like their community room and folks in that building actually coming down and seeing what it's all about? That just seems amazing to me and worth trying to make something like that or a county facility work. And we would have to address those kinds of issues about extra you know, awareness about that it's moving. But again, if this became something more regular, then people might know, you know. Oh, poor Nikki, she went today.
I think maybe too, like we would attach with extra efforts around publicizing it too. Like, you know, if we're going to be meeting at Walter Reed Community Center, we should have some sort of signs around the neighborhood to say like, hey, Housing Commission is going to be meeting in your neighborhood, like come to it. And like, we should publicize. It shouldn't just be like a regular meeting. We just happen to change the location. I feel like to make it work, it needs to be, we're coming to you, please come to us type thing.
Right. And you might plan it on a night where there's like a joint meeting with tenant landlord, or there's a hearing on a special topic, like that there's an extra value to being in the community or even in that community for that month or something. You know, get creative around making it worth its while and maybe targeting the location or the topic for which month you'd choose, that kind of thing.
Now you're talking crazy with the joint meetings. We've had some bad experiences with that. But no, I think it makes sense. And if people are amenable to it, I think exploring alternate locations for our meetings and having extra publicity to make sure that the communities where we're having those are well aware of it. and then it's very clear to anyone who checks the website or whatever else. It would have to be publicized more so than what we typically do for the Housing Commission.
Right. And you could also considering putting it up against a field trip. You know, we used to do the field trip, so that'd be something similar. If you went to an affordable housing property at 6, you know, and then the meeting started there at 7, you know, you could get creative, go a little, you know, get really crazy and add a few things in there. I don't know.
Great. Yeah, I'm fine with including this as another bullet here. Is everyone okay with this? Explore the possibility of holding meetings at different locations with additional publicity. Okay. I'm going to assume that's a yes.
Yeah, no objections.
And any other comments before we vote on it?
Okay. Well, Katie, thank you for the presentation. Is there a motion to adopt the recommendations and the report from the Community Engagement Task Force? And I believe we added 2 recommendations to barrier number 4 and 1 recommendation to barrier number 8.
So moved.
So is there a second?
Seconded.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll do roll call vote. Commissioner Montgomery?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
I think Commissioner Fierro had to drop. Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Commissioner Surface?
Yes.
Commissioner Wenger?
Yes.
Commissioner McGilvray?
Yes.
Commissioner Blake?
Yes.
Commissioner Linick? I guess he wasn't able to join us yet, and I vote yes as well. So it passes unanimously. Thank you again for all the hard work of the task force, and thank you for the Housing Commission. I'm excited to see what we can do with that. And I think to Alice's question, we send this to the county board, definitely send it to Samia, and try to get meetings with county board members to talk about it. And I know they're very focused on other things right now, like the budget crisis for next year and form of government and all sorts of other exciting things. But this is something we've been talking about as a community for a while, and I just haven't seen a lot of progress. So I'm really, really grateful that our commission stepped up to come up with what I think are some really great recommendations. And I will do my best to try to push this forward. And if anyone wants to help in that effort, I welcome you to join me. But yeah, I don't know how soon we can get on people's calendars to talk more about this and make sure that they actually read it, which is its own challenge. But yeah, I think this is great. And hopefully we can at least get the conversation started among staff and the county board about improving how we do things. Okay.
Thanks, Kellen. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, next item on the agenda is the 2026 work plan discussion. And hopefully everyone saw the document that I sent out with kind of my view of the status of what we did this year. I don't know if it's 10 o'clock. We don't have to go through the document unless people have questions about it. I just think it's helpful to get a sense of, did we accomplish the things we said we were going to accomplish? I think we did make a lot of progress. We had 2 really awesome subcommittees this year, one of which is resulting in a bill that's going before the General Assembly and hopefully will pass. Another, we just adopted the recommendations, today, and we'll see where those might go and what progress might happen there. So I think that was huge. So thank you, Brian, and thank you, Katie, for leading those efforts and everyone who was involved in them. We made progress in a number of other areas as well. But again, if people don't have specific questions or things that they wanted to comment on, I'm happy to just move into the questions that I had sort of asked people to think about, which is what went well this year and what could go better next year. And this is mainly like really helpful for me and maybe Alex as we think about like planning for next year and how we should be operating, what we should be focused on. It's just really helpful to get your guys' feedback as we're doing that planning over the next month.
I just think looking at the two subcommittees that came out of the Housing Commission this year, I don't know how many other commissions do things like that have a demonstrable impact, but I think that is a notch in the positive column that the Housing Commission could do those kind of things and they be fairly meaningful, right? And have a deliverable that's going to make an impact. So I think if we're going to look at replicating this in the future, we now have a model of success, right? And I think this is something that we can carry forward to 2025. Well, no, 2026. Oh my God, time is irrelevant now, it feels like.
And thank you, Brian. And I realize I'm forgetting our third subcommittee, which is Legislative Priority Subcommittee. And thank you, Nikki, for your hard work with that. I think because that's one that we do every year. And, Nikki, you've led it for, I think, at least the last 2 years, if not longer. So that one, I think, was impactful. I don't know if everyone saw the Legislative Priorities package that the board adopted. I have to admit, I was unaware that the board had moved everything up by a month this year. That was not communicated to the commission chairs. And I also thought I had more time to meet with the board to talk about our legislative priorities. We sent the letter, I requested a meeting, and I didn't get a response. And I was like, it's okay because I have until December to meet with them. And then found out the week before they voted on the week that they voted on the priorities that no, they were voting on them that week. And I'd already missed basically all my opportunities to meet with the board members about it, which was frustrating. So I think they do plan to keep this cadence for next year. So next year we will know, and that probably means that our legislative priority subcommittee needs to meet earlier and come up with the recommendations earlier, because I think the board is going to want things by August, I think, instead of September going forward. So, but now we know and we can plan. Last year, we didn't know, we weren't informed. We were told they wanted things earlier, but they didn't tell us that they changed their schedule, and that's why. So, yeah, I think hopefully next year we can plan now that we know and hopefully have those conversations with the board members. They included the tenants' rights general language. They included the affordability general language, but they didn't really get a whole lot more specific. Although they did include the language around adding the affordable housing ordinance change as one of their key priorities. So that one did make it in as its own standalone. And then the rest of like affordability related or tenant protections related just went into their general statement about like, here's our position on like tenant rights and affordability. Is like, we support more affordability, we support tenant rights. So yeah, that's where things ended up. And next year we can see if we want them to try and get more specific than the language that they had this year. Hopefully we can have some conversations with them before, they vote. But it was a learning process this year. A question that I have for folks. So we had 3 subcommittees going at one time. It felt like a lot from my perspective. Did other people feel like this was a lot this year, that it was maybe too much to have 3 subcommittees going at any one time? I know most of the year was 2, but for summer it was 3.
I feel like since one of them is kind of a constant, right? Our legislative priorities subcommittee, I personally don't count that one. It's like a thing we do. But I do think having the other two running simultaneously in addition to the third was a heavy lift. Just speaking from my perspective with the Affordable Housing Ordinance Subcommittee, if there's an opportunity to prioritize one over the other, I think maybe we should have that conversation early in the year and say, okay, what do we want to like divide our resources towards and prioritize? But yeah, just in terms of bandwidth, it might be something to consider for membership that having 3 subcommittees going at a single time is quite a load.
I
Any other
agree.
thoughts?
I think it was a lot because everyone who's on the subcommittees was also, is also doing the housing commission meetings, and is also, some of them are also on one of the other subcommittees or the legislative priorities. So it just, I think, helps if we would prioritize one like unique subcommittee each year in addition to legislative priorities.
Yeah, I agree. I think it gets hard with scheduling. I think one week we had like we had like a housing commission and then we had a subcommittee. It's just a lot. If we all work, and if you had multiple late nights at work, it's just like, I think it's too much. Yeah.
I think so as well. Although I think we accomplished a lot this year despite how much work it was. So again, kudos to the commissioners for all the hard work they put into it. What I'm thinking right now, proposing to the Housing Commission in January, is one subcommittee around housing affordability, what the specific scope of that is. I'm still kind of digging into the brainstorming session that we did, also looking at, we're likely in the General Assembly session to have legislation passed that has never passed before. Some things that it's the first time being introduced. Others, they've been introduced, passed, but vetoed. And so part of my brain is thinking, there may be new authorities or requirements on the county that we might want to be in the position to provide recommendations on how they go about complying or implementing those. There's a number of things, and there's also a lot of terrible budget things happening probably next year. So I'm still trying to think about that. If people have thoughts, feel free to email me or reach out. I'm happy to set up one-on-one meetings with folks ahead of like our January meeting, which I know we haven't announced the date yet for that. But assuming I'm still chair, I do. I should add, I do plan to be chair if the county board is willing to have me continue to be chair. But I won't find out until, I don't know, some point between now and the beginning of January, if that is still happening. But I've indicated to Maureen, our board liaison, that I would like to continue serving as chair. But yeah, so assuming that I am still chair next year, then my plan, like I said, would be one subcommittee other than legislative priorities, but I think we should continue to have that subcommittee meet, during a short time frame, to focus on something around housing affordability that is yet to be, fully fleshed out.
I also want to add that I'm stepping down as vice chair after this year.
Thank you, Katie, for all of your help and support. And I think you had that role starting last year, right?
Just this year. It was just this year, yeah.
Oh, really? I thought you maybe November or December or something got appointed last year, but okay. Well, you've been a great vice chair, and I appreciate all the work that you've done. And I'm glad that you're staying on the commission, even if you're stepping down from the leadership role.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to announce the new vice chair.
Oh, I don't. It is to be determined by the county board, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be chair. I don't know who the vice chair will be yet next year. So, yep, but we'll find out. Other other thoughts on what could have gone better this year or what went well this year? I know last year, I think we talked a lot about like our meeting structure, and we tried to implement some things like we put times on the agenda. Like people talked about, can you give us a break sometimes? So I've been trying to do when we have longer meetings, like a 5-minute break. So hopefully those have helped. I think our meetings have been shorter this year than they were previously. So we've tried to do that. This meeting, we bumped at least 1 or 2 things from the agenda to try to shorten it because the site plans got added kind of at the last minute, and we didn't want you to be here until midnight. But yeah, we've been trying. Alex works hard with me to figure out when we can get agenda items on, and sometimes there's very little control because I'll say, oh, I really love a presentation on this from the county or a briefing on that or an update on that, and then it's on 5 different things, and then it's 1 month and they say, okay, we all want to present that month. And we're like, okay, well, it's not going to work. And other months it's like, oh, no one can come to the Housing Commission, so there's nothing on the agenda right now. Yeah, so it's very dependent on other people's schedules. Nikki, you were going to say something?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say even if the meetings are long, it's nice to know. Like I feel like before it would say 7 to 9, but like you'd look at the agenda and be like, there's no way. But like tonight, for example, like at least we knew like it was planned to go till after 10. So it's like you can prepare and get your like affairs in order. And then I enjoyed we had like some external like non-Arlington presenters. I enjoyed that. I feel like it's beneficial for us as commissioners to learn what other jurisdictions are doing. And even like closer to home, like I know we've talked about like rent control and like how people have cited how that has or hasn't worked in neighboring communities. So maybe having like someone come and speak on that, or even the idea that Alice mentioned around the video recording that Fairfax does, like just learning other ways that we can draw upon what other communities are doing to model.
Sounds good. Yeah, and if people have ideas or thoughts on like external presentations or briefings that they want, let me know. I'm also hoping that we can do like a housing forum and with the public next year. I know this year I was trying to get that county board, event, and that got shot down, but maybe they'll let us do our own public event without the county board members having to commit to participating. So at least we can hear from the public and engage with them on what they want to see housing wise in our community. Again, there's staff support that's required to make that successful, especially if we want to make sure underrepresented and historically marginalized folks are like invited, engaged, and able to participate. So, there's a expense there, and I understand the county is trying to prioritize limited resources, but certainly that I think would be beneficial if we're able to do it, and would be excited about having that event next year. Any other thoughts on things that could have gone better this year or went well?
I just appreciate Kellen, all the work he put into getting the speakers to come, again, like from different places too, and just all the follow-up you do with the county. It's really a lot. It's a lot that you do. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that comment. Okay. Anything else that people want us to keep in mind as we're, I'll be drafting the like our end of the year report, and also our like draft work plan for next year for us to, consider at our January meeting. And yes, Alex is awesome, and he's a great staff liaison. So thank you, Alex, for all that you do for us. because he has like a real job on top of what he does for our commission. So not to say that this isn't real work, but yeah, he has many other responsibilities in addition to just helping us. But yeah, so if there's anything else that you want us to consider for either the end of the year report, which Katie, I don't know if you can still help me with that because you were super helpful last year with our annual report and putting in the actual, like, what happened, what were the results of what we did. But if there's anything related to that or related to our draft work plan that you want me to consider, like, please let me know, over the next month. And with that said, Alex, I think the proposed date, what is it, the 15th of January for our next meeting?
Yes, assuming the county board schedule remains the same.
Because they're meeting super late in January. Is that always the case, or is that unique to next year?
It actually is the case usually. The county board meeting is the 24th this year in January, the draft meeting date.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Okay. That is all on the 2026 work plan discussion. If people don't have anything else, then we'll do development updates next.
Okay, I can share a few development updates very quickly. So there is one site plan that's going forward this month, and that is the River House site plan. So it is a base contribution only. That's why it was not heard tonight. But the applicant will be choosing between a $3.6 million AF contribution or 12 units on site. Those are kind of the on-site versus cash options that they have. So that one will be going to the board. And then also there's an UCMUD project. It's a little bit different than a site plan. It's a use permit, but basically there is a project called the Lockup Self-Storage, and it is a commercial project. So there's no units coming through with that one, but there is a contribution of $1,005,143 coming to AHIF through that project as well. So both of those will be on the board agenda for December. And then the only other update I have was finding a rep for the SPRC for Walgreens, and Joe volunteered. So we are all good there. And that is it for development updates.
Thank you, Alex. And actually, this is sort of related to the prior item as well. So you guys saw these two site plans did not come to us before they went to the county board. They came to us after the first SPRC. That was a change because what we requested this year. I think it probably remains to be seen whether or not we think that's any better, if it's helpful, if it's not. But one of the things I've also been considering is that we probably should write out here as a housing commission, here's the information we want included in presentations to us about site plans. Here are the things that we really care about as a housing commission. Especially so that we don't ask questions that people get frustrated about, that we're asking questions like, yeah. So I think that's helpful. And I think we probably should also develop like a list of questions for people who represent us at SPRCs to say, like, here are some key questions to consider asking, or, things to pay close attention to, so that we're having people walk into those meetings with a better sense of, like, am I here to just ask about like green space, or like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to say or care about, that we say, well, here are some of the key things or typical things. If one of these questions seems relevant, ask that. Just to give people a little bit more guidance walking into those meetings, because sometimes I think people can be like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say or do here. And again, just so that we can give guidance to folks and, staff and applicants when they present to us, like, please make sure you include like your unit like size mix, because we really want to know how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, like that's important to us. Please include it in your presentation so we don't have to ask separately and then you have to go dig for the information. Like things like that. If anyone wants to take a stab at creating that, that would be great. If not, I will try to find some time to do it and send it out for people to review. But if anyone really wants to try to put something like that together, that would also be helpful.
I can help maybe do a template on that.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. Okay. And then last item are subcommittee liaison reports. We're done with a lot of our subcommittees, but we still have SIDSAC. Any update there?
No, not really.
C2E2.
So yeah, unfortunately, that was we were not aware that they were going to the board so quickly. We kind of had really late notice, so they already, I believe they already approved the updated green building incentive program. And that was, I think I saw it sent out somewhere, but I can probably try to find it and send it out to the commission.
Thank you, Katie. And we'll be adding, so Jason is going to be representing the Housing Commission on, what is it, the climate working group or something? I don't remember the specific name of it. Alex or Jason?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Climate Action Plan Advisory Group.
There we go. So thank you for that and look forward to receiving updates once that gets kicked off, which I don't think is January. I think it was a little bit later next year, but looking forward to that. And are there any other liaison or subcommittee updates? Okay, hearing none, then thank you all for your contributions this year. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. And I think Alice had asked if we have any vacancies. We have one on the commission. And if I don't talk to people, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and any other holidays you might celebrate in December or early January. Have a happy one of those as well. And yeah, if not, I will see you all in the new year.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Happy holidays.
Have a good night.
Happy holiday.